because then these students get a bunch of people to clap for them and see what wonderful things that they've done. So thank you for being here for whatever reason, because now you get to really support 4 wonderful students that we're going to be talking about today. The first is from Brook Hill Elementary School, and it's Araceli Godinez. Congratulations. All right, you can turn around, face these folks, and listen. Araceli Godinez has been chosen to represent Brook Hill as the Santa Rosa City School Board Student of the Month. She has attended Brook Hill since kindergarten and has always been a shining star. Araceli is poised, responsible, and committed to learning. She never runs out of questions and curiosity, something every teacher loves. That was my ad. Most importantly, she loves to share what she has learned with others. Quote, "What good is knowing something if you can't share it with somebody else?" she says. Araceli has always had a positive outlook. She finds fun in the simple everyday curriculum and possesses the ability and willingness to learn new subjects. She has the ability to read comprehensively, to write effectively, and speak fluently in both English and Spanish. Her leadership is apparent in any situation, both in and outside the classroom. Her peers admire her work quality and, most importantly, the overall effort that she puts in. Now, academics didn't always come easy to her. Araceli never hesitates, though, to put in extra work to ensure she grasps the concepts and is successful. She most recently put in that extra work studying for the school spelling bee, and it paid off. She represented Brook Hill at the regional spelling bee. She can often be found devouring books or volunteering in any way to help that's possible. Her caring attitude towards schoolmates, combined with her willingness to learn and grow, makes her a wonderful example to all the other students. Araceli aspires to be a veterinarian. She loves animals, and especially dogs. When she vacationed in Mexico, she noticed a lot of dogs roaming the streets, and that made her heart hurt. Dogs on the streets really hit home for Araceli. She wants to become a veterinarian to assist in the health, happiness, and survival of all animals. Araceli hopes to get a scholarship and study veterinarian school at Harvard. She knows it's going to be hard to get into Harvard, but she's committed to putting in the extra work to make her dreams come true. At home, Araceli admits to loving to curl up in her oversized Brook Hill Bobcat sweatshirt with her puppy and enjoy music and videos on her new laptop. She's fallen deeply in love with L.M. Montgomery's novel, Anne of Green Gables. Araceli has a ready smile for all and a joyous sense of life. Araceli has a bright future ahead of her, and we all look forward to watching her grow and achieving her goals. The staff at Brook Hill and the Board of Education are proud of Araceli, know that she will be successful, and congratulate her on being Santa Rosa City Schools Student of the Month. Are her parents or siblings here? Let's come down for a picture. Thanks, Araceli. And your mom? And your brother? Where's there? Okay, over here? Very cool. What's his name? Jesus? Okay. Next, from the Santa Rosa Charter School for the Arts, Aaliyah Patterson Birch. Aaliyah has been a student at the Santa Rosa Charter School for the Arts since kindergarten. There's a theme here. As a 7th grader, Aaliyah has become a leader in the academic and social realm of her school. She is an active classroom participant and is especially passionate when it comes to class discussions and projects. The quality of her work she produces is really something to see. Aaliyah has excellent attention to detail and execution on each assignment she completes. She's involved in the leadership club and is taking dance from Mrs. Powick. Aaliyah is a multifaceted talent when it comes to arts. She's a gifted artist and a gifted dancer. Equally impressive is her blossoming from a shy, reserved, albeit polite, student to a thoughtful, compassionate, inquisitive person with a wonderful imagination and a great sense of humor. We're so lucky to have her as part of the school community at Santa Rosa School for the Arts. Outside of the school, Aaliyah enjoys spending time with her family and staying active. She shows respect and consideration to everyone she meets, and we believe at the school that this is one of her best qualities. The staff is proud to say, exactly, I agree. The staff is proud to say that Aaliyah is very deserving of the honor. So on behalf of the staff and the Board of Education, we want to congratulate Aaliyah for being the Santa Rosa City Schools Student of the Month. He's going to have to interrupt his video, though. Next, from Lawrence Cook Middle School, Valeria Jimenez Lopez. Valeria Jimenez Lopez is Santa Rosa City School Middle School Student of the Month. She goes to Lawrence Cook Middle School, where she is one of the super 8th graders this year. Besides maintaining straight A's in all courses, from advanced courses to student leadership and the Avid elective, Valeria is a leader in the classroom and on campus. Valeria decided to sign up for 0-period PE this year so that she could be both in student leadership and Avid. Additionally, she participates with the mariachi group, playing guitar and singing. There were plenty of superlatives to describe her and her efforts. Quote, "One of the hardest working students I have ever seen. She has many commitments, but yet maintains a positive and upbeat attitude with an ever-present smile." Can we see that? Always a leader at her table groups in science, always volunteers to answer questions, says Ms. McNiff. Kind, considerate, well-respected and liked by her peers, says Ms. Krause. And Mrs. Moore states that Valeria holds a very high standard for herself and leads by example. She's a team player and is always respectful to her classmates and teachers. She's a pleasure to have in class, as she is a positive role model for other students who, at times, may have difficulty making appropriate choices. Valeria is involved in campus activities and other organizations as well. In addition to the extracurricular activities, she is the ASB representative to Lawrence Cook Middle School's School Site Council. Cook Middle School and the Board of Education are proud of Valeria Jimenez Lopez and congratulate her in being the Santa Rosa City Schools Student of the Month. And from Maria Carrillo High School, Lucy Yang. Maria Carrillo High School is honored to introduce Lucy Yang as the Board of Education Student of the Month for February 2018. There are so many amazing things to say about Lucy that it's going to be hard to know where to start. Academically, Lucy is described as inquisitive and hardworking, determined and diligent, and by one teacher as the hardest working student I have ever met. However, it's not only her 4.86 GPA that has earned her the selection as Student of the Month. Yeah, that's worth a little bit, huh? Lucy is currently the editor of the student newspaper, the Puma Prensa, as well as one of the lead reporters. She consistently asks thorough questions and listens without bias or preconceived ideas. Can you go to Washington? She maintains her professionalism at all times when interviewing, writing, and following up on newsworthy issues. She presents herself as a genuine, open, and honest person when speaking with people, making them comfortable even in sometimes uncomfortable situations. These are traits that will serve her well now and in the future, but they're not the only reason Lucy was selected. As important as academics are, the quality that stands out the most about Lucy is her kindness and giving nature. In her efforts to help the Carrillo student community after the October 17 fires, she created the online MCHS Notes Project, in which she provided a website for students to donate their class notes in any subject so that students who had lost their notes in the fires would have easy access to notes from any of their current classes. Many students benefited from this incredible resource. Lucy asked for only one thing in return in doing this project. She asked that she remain anonymous. That didn't work. I actually called Vicki Zanz today because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't doing something with this that I shouldn't be doing, but it is an example of exactly why she's here in front of you. She didn't want any accolades associated with it. She just wanted to help other students. Vicki did ask her if it was okay, so we all have her okay to out her today about this. Lucy is extremely focused and has very specific aspirations for the future. She is planning to major in chemistry with an emphasis in pre-med and either double major or minor in English or creative writing. She dreams of being both a physician and a novelist so that in her own words she can make people physically and emotionally well. It is for all these reasons that Maria Carrillo High School and the Board of Education are proud to recognize Lucy as the Santa Rosa City Schools Student of the Month.
Natasha. Thank you, Director Carl. So we'll go on with the parent organization updates, and then when we're done with that, we'll take a quick break so that anybody who's here for the awards and the updates can file out. So we'll start with Brook Hill Elementary School. And after Brook Hill, yeah, up there is fine. After Brook Hill, we'll have Cook, and then Santa Rosa Charter School for the Arts, and then Maria Carrillo.
Good evening, Santa Rosa City Board members. My name is Martina Cardenas. I am the PFO president of Brook Hill Elementary. This is my second year as president, and myself, along with the PFO members, worked very hard with our principal, Mrs. Bettis Cook, to support our school. I would like to share how PFO has supported Brook Hill this school year. We started the school year with a Teacher's Welcome Back luncheon in August. In November, we did a cookie dough and wrapping paper fundraiser in which we raised $7,000. And then in December, we did our winter concert in which we sold tamales, pizza, nachos, cookies, and drinks. And we raised, within just 2 hours, we raised $1,000. So, and we couldn't do this without the kids' enthusiasm and encouraging their parents to attend. And our parents are wonderful. We appreciate their financial support and the time. And really, who doesn't like to eat, right? We all love to eat. So. And today, also, we did a Valentine fundraiser in which we raised over $1,000. So we're very proud of our school. We donated $2,000 towards our Chromebooks for our kids, and hopefully the teachers are close to reaching their goal to buy these Chromebooks. So, other events we have planned to support throughout the year is our Science Night, Gardening Day, and Open House, which I personally invite you, which is on May 10th. We sell Mexican food, so it's one of Brook Hill's biggest events of the year. And we also support the Rose Parade and some of the other field trips that the students take. It's a great honor for me as a mother and as president of PFO to work with the teachers to help the children succeed and thrive into the future. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share the exciting events at Brook Hill Elementary.
Thank you. Thank you for your hard work, and congratulations on that good fundraising. Cook Middle School.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Veronica Lopez, and my daughter Valeria is an 8th grade student at Lawrence Cook Middle School. I'm happy to be here tonight to share with you some important details about the education opportunities for students and the school. Academic expectations are high, and students like my daughter are being prepared for college and career pathways. At Elsie Allen High School, I'm happy to say that my daughter is successful and stay involved in a number of extra opportunities available at Lawrence Cook Middle School. She used the 0-period physical education class so that she can enroll in 2 electives, student leadership and the understanding ABET. College preparation elective. Additionally, Valeria plays on the school basketball and has participated in the school and summer mariachi program. She currently is taking classes every Tuesday and Saturday, is very passionate for music. In fact, her picture is in the school website for the last summer performance at Luther Burbank Center. This year, Cook Middle School has doubled the number of advanced class for 8th grades. This is very important, as these students need flexibility in their schedule so that they may enroll in different electives that occur at different times in the school. Main funnels is continuing at Cook Middle School, once in the morning, another time after lunch. Students and teachers practice main funnels to help them slow down and focus for the day. I personally do mindfulness with my family and home because it's fantastic how it can help you. Lawrence Cook Middle School is the Compact for Success Middle School. This program that introduces students to high school and Sonoma State University. By completing 2 years at Cook and 4 years completing the A through G academic requirements and LC Allen, students can get quick acceptance to Sonoma State University. And that is only the beginning of the opportunities available at the high school. Your restorative justice program continues to have a very positive impact on the climate on the school. This year, one of the teachers along with your restorative specialists start a community engagement class with 8 grades to equip them to help keep the campus calm. Via Esperanza Center for Education serves to help the community in many ways. They are class for parents to learn English, develop computer skills, and they help the children be successful in the school and in life. I currently take classes in the head and I taught English class. I'm taking advantage of the opportunity and being him to get somewhere in life and show my children that anything really is possible. LAC meetings occur each month with important information for your families. One meeting had one of counselors provide a lot of information about what is taking be ready for college. Other meetings focus on important topics such helping students cope with the pressures on middle school. I'm extremely thankful for the opportunities that Lawrence Cook Middle School has given to my daughter and everything the school does for the students to be prepared for next step. Thank you everyone for your time and have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you for the report.
So I have the same information in Spanish. It's okay if you read it? Thank you. Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Verónica López y mi hija Valeria está en el 8º grado y estudia en la escuela secundaria Lawrence Cook. Estoy feliz de estar aquí esta noche para compartir con ustedes algunos detalles importantes sobre la educación y las oportunidades para los estudiantes de la escuela. Las expectativas académicas son altas y los estudiantes, al igual que mi hija, están preparando para las vías universitarias y carreras en LC Allen. Estoy feliz de decir que mi hija tiene éxito y sigue involucrada en una serie de oportunidades adicionales disponibles en la escuela secundaria Lawrence Cook. Ella utiliza la clase de educación física periodo 0 para que pueda inscribirse en el liderazgo de alumnos y la preparación para la universidad. Audit excepcional electiva. Además, Valeria juega en equipos de baloncesto de la escuela y ha participado en nuestro programa de mariachi escolar durante el año y el verano. En la actualidad, participa apasionada por la música. De hecho, su imagen está en el sitio web de la escuela de la actuación del pasado verano en el centro de Burbank Luther Center. Este año, Cook Middle School se ha duplicado el número de clases avanzadas para 8º grado. Esto es muy importante, ya que los estudiantes necesitan flexibilidad en su horario para que puedan inscribirse en diferentes materias optativas que se producen en diferentes momentos del día escolar. La atención plena continúa en Cook Middle School, una vez por la mañana y otra vez justo después de comer. Los estudiantes y profesores practican de atención para ayudarles a reducir la velocidad y concentrarse para el día. Yo personalmente practico la atención plena con mi familia en casa porque es fantástico cómo nos ayuda. Lawrence Cook Middle School es el convenio del éxito en la escuela media. Este programa que presenta a los estudiantes de la escuela secundaria y la Universidad Estatal de Sonoma State. Al completar 2 años en Cook y 4 años en el LC Allen, los estudiantes pueden obtener una rápida aceptación a la Universidad Estatal de Sonoma. Y esto es solo el comienzo de las oportunidades disponibles después de la secundaria. Nuestro programa de justicia retroactiva continúa teniendo un impacto muy positivo en el clima de la escuela. Este año es de nuestros profesores, junto con nuestra especialista restauradora, comenzó una clase de comprensión de la comunidad, con 8 grados para equiparlos para ayudar a mantener la calma en el campus. Centro Vía Esperanza para la Educación sirve como ayuda para la comunidad de muchas maneras. Hay clases para padres para aprender inglés, desarrollar habilidades informáticas y ayudar a sus hijos a tener éxito en la escuela y en la vida. Actualmente estoy tomando clases del JEP y tomo clases en inglés. aprovechando las oportunidades que estoy recibiendo para llegar a algún lugar en la vida y mostrar a mis hijos que todo es realmente posible. El AC se produce una vez al mes con información importante para nuestra familia. Una reunión tuvo uno de los consejos para proporcionar una gran cantidad de información sobre lo que se necesita para estar listos para la universidad. Otras reuniones se encuentran en temas importantes tales como ayudar a los estudiantes a hacer frente a las presiones de la escuela media. Estoy muy agradecida de las oportunidades que la escuela Lawrence Cook le ofrece a mi hija y a todos los que hace para los estudiantes. Estén preparados para el siguiente paso. Gracias a todos por su tiempo y que pasen buenas noches. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And now for Santa Rosa Charter School for the Arts. Erin, take it away.
Thank you, Director Close and members of the board. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to talk about our school. I'm going to try to keep it very simple this year. We really want to express our thanks for the new campus. It is lovely. It's amazing. It took a long time, and we really are appreciating it. So thank you and your staff for making that happen. The second thing is we want to say thank you for Principal Kristen Vogel. Our school has long had fantastic teachers and fantastic workers that support the teachers and fantastic families, and I feel like we finally have just a wonderful leader. She's really a breath of fresh air, and yes. And then normally I give you kind of a detailed fundraising update, but this year with the fire, we finished our SEED campaign, which provides $1,000 for every teacher in their classroom, and then we kind of stopped and supported our fire families. We are hoping to have, actually we're planning to have a spring fundraiser this year, and we're hoping to basically be able to finish some of the classrooms that still need some tables and some other kind of basic stuff to help make them go. So again, thank you for letting me talk a little bit about our school.
Thank you. Thank you. And then finally, Maria Carrillo High School.
Superintendent Kitamura and members of the school board, thank you so much for inviting us to come and speak with you tonight. I brought, I think it's Lori is passing out some copies of our last month's Parents Association Puma Pride newsletter, which is put together by our amazing and very hardworking editor, Mew Dieter. It's something we're very proud of, and we'd love it if you guys could give it a little look over. So things to be proud of, it seems to be sort of a reoccurring theme in most of my presentations, and I guess tonight won't be an exception. This year, I have to say that as a parent at Maria Carrillo, what I'm most proud of is how our school community responded to the October fires. I know you're well aware that about 10% of our school population lost their homes, and the response from everyone at the school, from administration to parents, teachers, support staff, students, everyone stepped up their game 100% to come together and help each other. It was truly moving. As an association, we very quickly pulled together a gathering at the school the evening before everyone returned, because we wanted the parents to help gather some necessary and helpful information, and for the students to have the opportunity to sort of lighten up and gain a sense of normalcy. We had pizza and cupcakes, and we put together hundreds of Puma Strong t-shirts and that we designed and made up and gave away to everyone. And once classes resumed, the administration continued to show tremendous sensitivity to our families. They even used it as an opportunity to re-examine Carrillo's longstanding ethos as a homework-heavy, high-pressure school. And that conversation has just gotten started, but it's been a long time coming, and the parents are really glad it's being talked about. One thing that isn't going quite as well at Carrillo right now, unfortunately, is the adoption of Illuminate Ed. The teachers are pretty frustrated with it, and this concerns the parent community as well, because, you know, we love to keep up on our kids' grades and their assignments, and that's important to us. So that's why we had sponsored Jupiter Grades for all those years. But so we're just hoping that Illuminate Ed can continue to get more training and that the problem will get straightened out soon. Moving forward into next year, the incoming association president, Teresa Jepson, will be turning our group's attention away from communication, where it's been for the last 3 years of my time, and focusing on campus beautification. It's an issue that in the past might have seemed sort of trivial in light of, you know, some of the actual educational challenges that weren't being met, but a lot of those are being met now, which is really wonderful. And I think there was something about the fires that gave us all sort of a strong sense of place and a pride in place. And so we'd like to sort of seize on that idea and see what we can do to make our campus grounds a place that our students and staff can truly be proud of. So I thank you for all that you do for our schools, and I am truly grateful for the opportunities that I have had over these past 6 years to be a part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So before we do public comment, why don't we just take a few minutes so anybody who's here just for the Student of the Month awards and parent organization reports can leave if you want. Okay, so we'll take just a 3-minute break.
So sad.
So when people ask you,
We have to balance
okay, we're going to come back to order.
actual deficit getting larger, and unfortunately, 85% of our budget's in salary. So if you got a balance and benefit,
Okay, so we will move on to C10, public comment on non-agenda items. This is your opportunity to address the board on items not on the agenda. A reminder that if you have an issue that is a personnel matter, this is not the appropriate time to bring that to the board, but instead I would direct you to Assistant Superintendent Jason Lee, who's right there. There were a number of blue cards turned in that said non-agenda items, but then said budget, and I've moved those to F6 because that is an agenda item, F6. And so I have 3 blue cards right now for non-agenda items. The first one is Michelle Morales. You have 4. I have 4. After Michelle is Celeste Palmer, and then Michael Vanderporten, and then Carrie Charlton.
Good evening. I'm here to ask about the proposed move of the Cesar Chavez Language Academy to the Lincoln Elementary School campus. Why are you not presenting more options? This seems like a repeat of what happened at both Fremont and Doyle Park schools. Again, you pick a predominantly Latino school that has a high turnover of principals, low enrollment, and low test scores, and decide the only option is to close the school. These school closures and takeovers always affect displaced Latino students. You would never try this at a non-Latino school. You cannot really believe that it is a good idea to have both Cesar Chavez and Lincoln on one small elementary campus, which would be around 700 to 800 students in the fall of 2019. This makes no sense, and there are other options. This item needs to be placed on the school board agenda as a discussion item as soon as possible, with all other options presented. District staff is not being transparent. This plan hasn't even been presented to principals, other staff, and not even all the board members. You are moving too fast and trying to jam this through as if it were a done deal. How can you be making a decision this spring when the plan hasn't even been presented to the board? There are other options for Cesar Chavez. One is to turn Comstock into Cesar Chavez, keeping the middle school students who are already there or giving them the option of going to Cook. Another option would be turning Cook into Cesar Chavez and having those middle school students choose to stay at Cesar Chavez or move to Comstock. Neither of these options would displace students since both of these schools have low enrollment and they have space. Either one would be a good home for Cesar Chavez, which deserves a school that can grow from K to 8th grade as the charter calls for and as promised by the district when the school was created. As for Lincoln Elementary, it is a neighborhood school of hardworking immigrant families, many who do not drive. Lincoln should be left open for those families. Santa Rosa City Schools needs to stop closing schools that you refer to as failing schools. It is not the schools that are failing, it is the district that is failing these schools. The district should instead invest in these schools and communities, hire bilingual, bicultural principal, hire intervention and reading teachers, and really work with the Lincoln staff and parents to finally do what is right by this school. Santa Rosa City Schools speaks a lot about equity, but over the years, your policies and decisions have proven to be less than equitable. Our district mission statement is, every student, every possibility, no matter what. It's time that Santa Rosa City Schools lives up to that motto. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next is Celeste Palmer, and then Carrie Charlton. I actually accidentally called Michael, and your comment is on F1. So Celeste, and then Carrie.
Good evening, everyone. Before I begin, I would just like to thank the Santa Rosa Board for taking the issue of climate change into consideration. My name is Celeste Palmer, and I am a sophomore at Montgomery High School. Our community has just gone through one of the most costly, destructive, and deadly fires in California history. Many members of our community have lost everything, and in some cases, even loved ones. It is unethical to sit back and do nothing, as we know the severity of this fire is a result of climate change, a human-caused phenomenon. Past generations have put a burden on the backs of current and future ones, and we now have to address it before it is too late. I, like many others my age, have nightmares about the world I might someday live in, the prospects of a world where our children might never get to see the wildlife we are so fortunate to live with, the prospects of a world with an unstable climate and unprecedented amounts of climate refugees, causing famine and war. And finally, the fact that humankind has every part of the puzzle to solve this problem, except one, political will. And this is why I come to you today, because I truly believe that this political will starts at the local level, in this room. Therefore, for the sake of my generation, I sincerely hope that you adopt a strong resolution recognizing climate change as a children's issue. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Carrie Charlton or Carlton? Carlton.
Parent of a CCLA kindergartner, and there's a lot of things to discuss coming up in the future, but one of our bigger concerns right now is what happens in 6 months when we have 2 new classes come in and we don't have the physical space. Our other concern is that according to the California Department of Education, we're supposed to have 1 restroom per 40 students. We don't meet that right now, and we certainly won't meet it in the coming fall. So our questions are, where are we going to place the 2 new classes that come in 6 months? How is the board going to help us with our restroom facilities, drinking fountains, which we have 1, and how basically they're going to fit more students on our campus. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, reports. Santa Rosa Teachers Association. Mr. Lyon.
It's a new coat. Where's the pocket? Good evening, Superintendent Kitamura, President Close, and members of the board. I'm William Lyon. I'm the president of Santa Rosa Teachers Association. It seems appropriate on Valentine's Day to remind you that I love and respect you all, no matter what. It's all the more appropriate as my message tonight is in the spirit of let's make the best decision possible, not the shame on you variety. I hope my union brothers and sisters who have come to speak tonight about unfortunate but necessary budget cuts will note and employ my respectful tone. I think it's important for me to summarize and endorse the Budget Advisory Committee and the process that they went through, and let you know we are grateful for the increased transparency and inclusion. I'd also point out the few points that SRTA respectfully opposes from the recommendations from the committee. So as you know, our Budget Advisory Committee is new this year. This is a necessary and welcomed increase in transparency and inclusion in the budgetary process. I think it served the school board well. The 26 solutions presented tonight mark a significant improvement over where we were a year ago. Andre Bell, Joe Dantos, and the 14 other members of that committee are to be commended and appreciated. The places where the committee can be improved fall almost entirely into 2 categories. 1, this is the first year that we've done it, and 2, the fire hurt the committee's bandwidth and the timelines. SRTA is grateful for the school board and the Superintendent Kitamura's support of this committee, and we remain hopeful that this committee will become part of the new normal for our district. It's important to note 2 parts of the process that brought these solutions to the board for consideration. First of all, these solutions on the list were brought to the committee from the district and the cabinet, not from SRTA, the public, or from the Budget Advisory Committee itself. There were several solutions proposed by the committee, but none of those solutions has made it through the process to the school board for consideration this year. Second, the Budget Advisory Committee was not allowed to alter or trim any of the solutions before they voted on them. It was a take it or leave it for each budget item. However, the school board is not limited to take it or leave it. For this reason, SRTA respectfully asks the school board to use a scalpel instead of a hatchet and trim or eliminate the proposals that will most negatively impact our students. Specifically, we ask that the board use the surplus of suggested cuts to trim the 34.5 teacher jobs that are currently on the chopping block. Of the $6.2 million in cuts needed, nearly half, $2.96 million, nearly $3 million of the proposed cuts are cutting teacher positions. This will have a major impact to student learning. It means larger class sizes for students 4 through 12, more combo classes at the elementary and secondary level, fewer AP courses for high school students, fewer electives for middle school and high school students. It decimates the home and hospital program as we know it. It has fewer opportunities for elementary students to learn computers, art, music, and or PE. It'll make working conditions more difficult for all of our staff members, and likely more labor strife, as several of these cuts have not been negotiated and agreed to yet by SRTA, the exclusive bargaining representative of our 960 members. The good news is that while the district needs to make the $6.2 million from cuts in next year's budget, the current proposal is $7.4. That leaves $1.2 million for the board to use that scalpel instead of the hatchet and make those cuts away from the classroom as possible. Proposal B4 is to eliminate 27 teachers from 4th through 12th grade. This is equivalent of 135 sections at the secondary level. And I say equivalent because it would be unfair to know who's going to be cut at this time. But that's a significant number. It means that middle school and high school principals are going to have an extremely difficult decisions to make as they cut 5, 10, 15 or more classes from their current schedules. Elementary principals are going to have to create more combo classes, which means students will not have access to the full curriculum, as it is impossible to fully teach all of, for example, 4th grade standards and all the 5th grade standards to the same group of kids at the same time, even for the most veteran and respected of teachers. Item B4 should be trimmed to make these losses less devastating. Proposal B7 was explained to the Budget Advisory Committee as a reduction in alternative education staff. And in fact, that's still what it says. And the committee voted to support that solution. It was disclosed after the Budget Advisory Committee voted that this line item was to gut the home and hospital program, cutting 3.5 of the 4 of its teachers. Home and hospital teachers work with our most fragile students, those who cannot attend school for medical reasons. According to the California Department of Education's website, quote, the district is responsible for instructing and educating pupils who must be hospitalized or remain home due to a temporary but extended illness or disability. The number of students needing services is highly variable, as some kids need a week, others need a semester or longer, but there's no reason to believe that we will have fewer students who need these services in the future. Certainly not enough to justify 87.5% reduction to this successful program. SRCS has historically needed all 4 of these teachers to serve our students. There is no plan that has been negotiated and agreed to by SRTA for our members to pick up that slack. Proposal B7 should be eliminated this year, and until a plan is provided, that a plan to provide the required services is negotiated and agreed to by SRTA. Proposal B9 is to cut 4 of our prep specialists. These are the teachers who provide music, art, computers, and PE to our elementary students. They also fulfill a contractual requirement to provide 4 30-minute preparation slots to all of our elementary classroom teachers. SRTA understands that we currently have more of these specialists than needed to meet the contractual requirements, but according to our calculations, which we have shared with the school board and the cabinet, the overage is for 2 teachers, not for 4. If we cut all 4 instead of 2, that's the equivalent of 24 elementary teachers that will not have coverage for their required prep periods. Proposal B9 should be trimmed from cutting 4 to cutting 2. By using the $1.2 million of wiggle room that you have, thank you again, Budget Advisory Committee, you can save all 3.5 of the home and hospital jobs this year. You can save 2 prep specialist jobs and at least 10 more classroom teaching jobs. The district office leadership did the right thing by creating and supporting the Budget Advisory Committee. The committee did the right thing by bringing these proposed solutions to you. SRTA asks that you do the right thing by our schools, use a scalpel instead of a hatchet, and keep the cuts as far away from our students as possible. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, President Lyon. Tammy Alfonso, CSEA.
Good evening, President Close, Superintendent Kitamura, and board members. CSEA also agrees with SRTA of as keeping the cuts as far away from the classroom as possible. We would like you to consider item number 10. When we went through the fires, this group of employees were one of the first to be called in order to support our staff and our students. When schools opened, we depended on them to be there to help our children go through a very difficult time. Staff members who had lost their homes. We encouraged considering maintaining the current service as status quo. We understand, and there is one position that has not been filled all year, to consider leaving that one to another time when we could bring it back. We also would like you to consider looking at item number 9, our student engagement. These employees work closely every single day, 2 and 3 times a day, just for recess and lunchtime only, along with in the classroom with getting the children up, moving, and exercising. These are very important things for our children in this day and age. They would rather be sitting down, playing with their electronic gadgets that they're not supposed to bring to school, or on a computer. Let's think about the health of our children, along with their mental status, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Superintendent's report.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight on Valentine's. I see lots of hearts out there, so that's good to see. I'm going to start out first by speaking a little bit about CCLA and Lincoln and what's going on there. I think you all, I hope, know me well enough, and if you don't, you're going to know that this is not a process that has been done in the past. And I ask you to allow us to have a process that does include a lot of voices. No decision has been made. And I apologize if that is the impression that you've been given. This is too important of a decision to be made in isolation, number one, and number two, it is not my style. I will tell you that there are so many factors that we have to think about. The amount of varying ideas around this, and I say this about schools who need to grow and want to grow, and schools that are losing enrollment. I mean, just to be very honest with you. We are seeing a decline in enrollment in our district, sadly. And now with the fires, we absolutely do not know what to expect. We are bringing this forward way ahead of any decision. I mean, we estimate a year and a half, but it may take 2.5 years. It may take 3.5 years. Honestly, I don't know, because the voice of our stakeholders takes time to gather. It takes time. So just as we've done with other committees and other processes, another such thing as the BAC, where it takes more time, more resources to be able to gather the information, it also produces the best decisions that everybody can buy into. So what I'm going to tell you is that we're going to continue on the fact-finding process. We're going to gather information. We went to the teachers, we went to the staff first, no, staff and the parents. We're going to continue. We are looking at options, different things. I appreciate you saying that, Mrs. Morales, because there are options that we can definitely take a look at. And so I ask you to work with us through this process, because that's what it is, a process. Continue to provide us the feedback that you're giving us. It's good. What it showed me And I wasn't here during this time when Doyle Park was closed, but I have heard the fear and anxiety come up as a result of that. And so I don't want that to happen because what we need to do is we need to be sure all of our students are served. And so I ask you to be patient with us. And to me as a superintendent, where I've not had to deal with declining enrollment as well as increasing enrollment and being able to meet the needs of all of our students, it's a daunting task, but I'm telling you one that I really want your feedback, and I want to be able to say that we together came up with the best decision. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to say transition. I had the wonderful opportunity, the cabinet and I, to go to 3 school visits. Every Wednesday, we will be out at school sites. We go as a team because I speak to the principals and walk around and see what's going on. Assistant Superintendent Bell will meet with your head custodian and walk around and see what's going on, what things we maybe are missing, what things we can maybe improve right then and there or very soon after that. Rick Edson, CTO, will talk with your IT staff. Anna Guzman and Steve Mazzara will talk to teaching staff that's around. And Jason will talk to your classified staff and your people in the office. Then we come together, it's kind of like our collaboration. We come together and say, what did you see? What did you learn? What do we need to do to help support this school? So if you see us on Wednesdays, walking around, and then you see us huddled up in a corner, that's what we're doing. And so I wanted to let you know, because it's been very interesting, and we have learned a lot of things that we wouldn't have normally learned by actually being at your sites and listening to you, watching, looking, walking around, and gathering information. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I don't know how many of you are aware, but the county right now is undertaking its planning process for recovery and resiliency post-fire. And the city is going through a similar process. And, you know, investing in education locally is always important for students, always important for the economy. But post the catastrophe that we experienced this fall, it is even more important. And so I've made it my personal goal, and I'm going to ask my colleagues to join me in this, to spend as much time possible in the coming months getting in front of every group possible to tell them that we cannot wait for the state to give us more money to invest in local education, that we are going to need some commitment from our local governments and from our business communities to invest in education, or we are not going to recover in the way that we need to, and we are not going to be a more resilient community in the way that we need to. So my first stop on this was speaking to a group in front of the chamber last week, after which I was invited to be the speaker at the March 7th Alliance meeting to make that same pitch to the larger business community that we need to invest as a community in education in a real significant way, and we cannot just keep talking about the state underfunding us. So I invite anyone who's available to attend that meeting, and I'm going to invite my colleagues to help me take this show on the road in the next months. Second thing is, I don't know if you've seen the news today, but 17 students were killed, or 17 people were killed at a school shooting. Lori Fong asked me, are we going to do a moment of silence? And I said no. First of all, we already have one scheduled, but also this is the 18th shooting in 44 days. So we don't have time for all of the moments of silence. It's the 149th shooting since the beginning of this decade. Since I started on this board, 142 students have been killed in school shootings. 142. And I've been talking about locks in our schools since I started on this board, and still fewer than half of our classroom have Columbine locks. And a friend of mine asked me the other day, well, what are Columbine locks? And I said, they're just locks. They're the same locks we have on our front doors that allow us to, in times of danger or fear, to run inside and shut the door behind us. They are just locks. So at this point, with 142 kids killed since I started in office and 18 shootings in the last 44 days, It's foolish to think that we are immune from this in Santa Rosa, and it's reckless for us not to be prepared. We have bond money now, and I would take the position that it's unconscionable at this point not to use it. And I hope that we are talking about this again in here soon. Thanks. That is my report. Frank, do you have an NSBA or CSBA report?
I have just one item tonight, and just to consider the census. The census is going to be happening here pretty soon, a couple of years, but we're really worried about in the border states having a low count. And this will have a direct impact to federal monies that's going to come to California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. So I think we need to be thinking of strategies by which we can make sure that we get a proper count and not be undercounted in that regard. So I'll be pursuing that at NSBA, and hopefully we can get some good advice to our boards to tell us what we can do to make sure that we get properly counted.
Thank you. Ron, do you have a CSBA report?
I don't have a report, but I have a request. I will be a weekend after this weekend going to Sacramento to start my my tour as a on the legislative committee for the California School Boards Association president. I feel that I am a conduit, so I am looking for ideas for legislation. I don't want to be, I'm not going in there by myself. So my fellow board members, teachers, community, if you have any thoughts and you'd like to get them to me, please email me and I'll be glad to pass those on. But this is a new role for me and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kristoff. Okay, so that brings us to the E items, consent items.
Move items E2 through 5 and 7 through 10.
Second.
Moved by Director Carl, second by Director Pugh. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Kristoff?
Aye.
Director Fong? Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye.
Student Board Member?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And Director Carl, you wanted to pull E6 for discussion?
Yes, thank you. This is the fee proposal for architectural services for the modular restroom. And as I read through this, I noted that the scope of work included civil engineering drawings by the district or as expanded service by the architect's consultant. The practical impact of having the architect's consultant is that the architect then puts a 10% markup on that. And I, from a business perspective, get the concept in construction industry that if somebody is responsible to get a subcontractor, that there is some administrative cost associated with that, and oftentimes a markup associated with it. This one seemed a little bit different, though, in the sense that the district was given the opportunity to get the civil engineering drawings, or we could have the architect go and do it. And when the architect on a contract that's $29,000 gets civil engineering that's $21,000, we're paying an extra $2,200 for the architect to contact Brelgy and Race as opposed to us contact Brelgy and Race, or negotiate with the architect that the administrative cost of just getting the contract and putting the drawings into the rest of it seems to be not worth $2,000. And I realize it's a relatively small number, but as we go through these bond contracts, anywhere where we can save money that then doesn't go to consultants and goes into the project, it's worth doing. So I don't, I sent an email, said I was going to raise the issue. I don't know if anybody has any comments with respect to it. I am certainly going to support moving this forward, but I want to raise the issue less for tonight, tonight, and more for how do we do this in the future so that if we have the ability to go get civil engineering drawings, as an example, and the architect gives us that chance, we save $2,000 by making the phone call to Brelgy and Race ourselves.
Let me try to address your question.
Thanks.
this isn't just for coordination or bringing them to the table. This is actually for coordinating the drawings and specifications and bringing one package together to be submitted to the state. So it's not just a matter of a phone call. And I think we've shown our due diligence in saving as much money as we can as a team. But if you do the quick math at the rate they're paid, this equates to 12 hours. And I think that's well within the industry for what they're providing and the cost. And as you said, it is $2,200, and I can see your concern, but it wasn't just a mere fact of calling somebody to bring them aboard. There's some work behind it, and they could have actually, per industry standard, charged us a little more than 10%. So we did save some money there, and I think it's more than fair, as my professional opinion. So I would hope that addresses your question. If there is any other items you would like to bring to my attention, I'd gladly try to address those.
No, I appreciate the response, and I accept that. I do think having you on board is valuable, and as a result, as we walk through those places where the district can provide services or coordinate services and save money, it's always worth looking at.
And we'll continue to do so. If we can just go direct to a sub-consultant without using an architect, we'll do so in the future.
Good. Thanks,
that's the case. Thank you.
Move approval of E6.
Second.
Moved by Director Carl, second by Director Christoph. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye.
Student Board Member?
And then I'll move approval of item E11.
Second.
Moved by Director Carl, second by Director Fong. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl? Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Abstain.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye.
Student Board Member?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries, bringing us to the F items. F1, public hearing. I will open the public hearing. I have a blue card, Michael Vanderporten.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm Mike Vanderporten. I live out on Manor Drive, West Santa Rosa. I'm here on behalf of the elementary board people, or more elementary residents and voters. As you know, the trustee areas, the proposals have areas that have trustees will have 0 residents in their districts. It's so bad that the population variance line, which is provided for the secondary, is not even provided for the elementary. The goal of this whole project is ultimately to improve the ability of a protected class to elect candidates and influence the outcome of an election. That's in your text. Yet these proposals remove completely the ability of anyone in the elementary district to affect a significant number of the proposed seats on this board. We don't seek a benign autocracy where one group of people rules over others because they think they have better ideas, because they think they are smarter, or because they have more wealth. America is a democracy. We're seeking to be using elected representatives to have board members for whom there is not one person in the elementary district voting for them is wrong. These proposals seek to remove that representation from among our most needy and our most vulnerable school populations. Would you ask the Santa Rosa City Council to reserve 2 of its seats for people from Petaluma? Would you ask Pine Olivet to reserve 2 of its seats for people who live in the Santa Rosa Elementary District? Of course not. Then why do you propose to have non-Santa Rosa Elementary people voting and having control over 2 seats on this board? Do you not seek an active, involved community for our elementary? If so, cutting them off from their board is a big step in the wrong direction. Madam Chair, you spoke of the need to go out and reach for additional funding in the community. To have board members who don't live in the elementary district and have never been voted for by any person in the elementary district try to go out and raise money for the elementary district is absurd. So when this board considers elementary budgets, elementary faculty facility bonds, with elementary teacher negotiations, elementary programs, we need to have all those board members be representatives of the elementary districts. They need to be elected, at least in part, by people from the elementary community. Right is right, wrong is wrong. This is clear. So I encourage you to take an action in support of American principles and in support of elementary students. Reject all 4 of these proposals. Send the consultants back to the drawing board.
I have no more blue cards, so I'm going to close the public hearing and go to F2, open the public hearing for submission of a general waiver request for approval by the State Board of Education. I don't have. Having no blue cards, I'll close the public hearing and move to F3, the action item, approval of resolution authorizing submission of a general waiver request to be approved by the State Board of Education. I think our demographer has some information about the maps in general.
Sure. So this action item is to approve the waiver request to waive the requirement that the action go to the voters prior to it taking effect. This would allow for the State Board of Education to waive that requirement. But we do have a brief presentation just to go over. I know we have one new scenario that's been brought to the table since the original scenarios were brought to the table, and that scenario has been on the district's website for the last 7 days. So as Lori brings that up, I will maybe just skip through a couple of these slides because we've talked about these in the past, and this is information that's all been available. But really this slide just talks about the process that the district has undergone. As you see, it began way back in September with pre-map public hearings. We've had post-map public hearings at a number of board meetings. We've had 5 community input meetings, 3 of them at school sites, 2 of them at the district office. We had a public hearing January 24th was the most recent one at a board meeting. Tonight's public hearing that was just concluded, and then the schedule calls for the February 28th board meeting to be the final public hearing and the opportunity for the board to select a map that it would like to use for its election method. Going ahead now, these are the considerations in terms of each area should be roughly equal in terms of population, the Federal Voting Rights Act, compact and contiguous, looking at communities of interest, man-made natural geographic boundaries. Go to the next slide, and that's just our total population information, 209,670 residents as of the 2010 census, and how the demographics break down there. We can go to the next slide that we discuss citizen voting age population estimates, and this is just looking at concentrations of members of protected classes within the school district to see if there's abilities to influence or create areas where they can better influence the outcome. And you'll see the largest group being the Hispanic Latino group in terms of protected classes and the concentration areas that exist that we look to keep together in these scenarios. So we'll go to scenario 1 then, and these maps have been available since October. I know the fires occurred right as these maps were released, and that's one of the reasons why the timeline for this process has been extended, and a number of hearings and meetings have been added through this process to allow for as much public feedback as possible. In addition to the online comment form that has been available for folks to provide comments. So this is scenario 1. Generally what you'll see is this is one of the more pie or pizza approaches, or pizza pie if we just make it one thing, approaches to the trustee areas where all of the areas almost meet in the center of the district, trying to have it where that population center is and divide that into the 7 areas appropriately. Go to the next slide. This zooms into the more populated portion of the district, and you can see where all those areas begin to meet. The following slide has the detailed demographic information. What we want to note here is that areas 1 and 6 have the increased percentage of Latino citizen voting age population. So part of the purpose of going through this effort is to increase the ability for members of protected classes to influence the election. And so we have 2 areas where the Latino population has an increased influence over the current district-wide election method. The next slide, kind of in relation to what our public comment speaker mentioned, talks about the population numbers both inside the elementary district and then outside the elementary district, and what that total looks like. You'll see that the district as a whole is, if we look at about 210,000, 70,000 in the elementary district, 140,000, again, I'm just kind of rough estimating there, are not in the elementary district portion. So you can see in this particular scenario, each area does touch the elementary district to a degree. Scenario 2 then still has a little bit of that pizza aspect, though you'll see that the area 7 in the north, where it's Mark West and Rincon Valley, kind of arches over the center of the pizza, so it doesn't come into the center of town. You can see on the next slide the more detailed look at this. And then the demographics again, areas 1, 5, and 6, where the percentage of Latino citizen voting age population is above the district average. And then on the next slide, we can see how the population by school district, meaning inside and outside the elementary district, breaks down. So then we go to scenario 3, and I should mention, as I mention this, we do also note the election sequencing on the maps, and so the odd-numbered areas are up for election in 2020, and the even-numbered areas are up for election in 2018 is the plan, and we also have the current board members, which areas they reside in. Obviously, you'll see areas where there's 2 or 3 current board members in some of these scenarios, and that's not a permanent thing. As the elections occur and people's terms are up, those will cycle through. So scenario 3, again, not quite the pizza aspect of some of the other scenarios. You have area 3 kind of in the center, and then area 2 to the north. Can zoom into the next one to show what those areas look like again in the center of town. And then we can look at the demographics on scenario 3 and see again we have those increased influence areas in area 6 and 7 in this scenario, where we get close to 30% Latino citizen voting age population in those 2 areas. Following slide then shows the population breakout again by school district, and this one has one area, area 5, where it's completely outside of the elementary school district's boundaries. And then scenario 4, which is our new scenario, has less of the pizza aspect and almost kind of a donut hole aspect to it, where we have one area. I must be hungry, and it's Valentine's Day, so it kind of has that area 1 in the center being our donut hole, and then we have a couple of areas that surround it. What this does is it doesn't use the 101 as much as a dividing line as some of the other scenarios, as you'll notice. So we do have area 1 that includes a lot of the downtown area as well as the west of the 101 portions, extending out, combining the west side with the junior college areas. Area 3 to the north of that, you'll notice includes the highest impacted areas from the fires, all within one trustee area. So the coffee area, the Fountain Grove area are all within one area. And this one also doesn't divide up downtown as much as the other scenarios, so you have a larger downtown voice, if you will, in this particular scenario. A lot of the other outlying areas are fairly similar to what we saw in scenario 2, this is a derivative or derivation of scenario 2. Again, you can see on the next slide a more zoomed in version of this. The other thing that this does that scenario 2 didn't accomplish is it does put a Santa Rosa City Schools physical site in each of the 7 trustee areas. I believe in scenario 2 We don't have a physical school in each of the 7 trustee areas, so this accomplishes that as well. In terms of the demographics on the following page, again, we do have areas of increased influence in terms of areas 6 and 4 at 25% and 29% respectively in terms of citizen voting age for the Latino population. And then finally, in the data on population by district, we have 2 areas that are completely outside of the elementary school district. So that's really just a summary of all the scenarios and where we are in the process. Again, there'll be scheduled for 1 additional public hearing at the February 28th board meeting for folks to make any additional comments.
Great, thank you. And I'm going to ask you to stay there for a second and then ask our legal counsel, Mr. Aiden, to come on up and join you. And because I think we might have you answer a couple questions here. Do you want to ask?
We've had 1 public comment with respect to the elementary district. Am I correct that the way we're structured right now, all 7 of us could be elected from outside the elementary district? Literally, we could have 7 people, none of which would be represented by virtue of our location within the Santa Rosa Elementary District, but perhaps in the partner elementary districts.
Yes, that's correct. Because the high school district is larger than the elementary school district, it's technically possible that all the board members actually live in the high school district now within and can be elected from outside of the elementary school district. Yes.
And the goal when we started this a couple of years ago was to deal with protected class and making sure that there was an increased likelihood or potential for influence in the election. Elementary school parents per se are not a protected class. Is that right?
Yes, they are not. Not for the sake of this law, they are not.
Okay. And so devising districts related to that wouldn't accomplish any of the goals that we've set out, nor would it accomplish any goals that the law requires.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And one more thing, I just want to kind of ask you to clarify is the trustees that will be elected by each district, they don't represent that district. They represent all of the district. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Every trustee will have the obligation to represent the district as a whole, not only the area from which they were elected in.
Right. Thank you. So this is an action item.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Christoph, second by Director Carl. Roll call vote, please.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Carl? Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Sheffield? President Close?
Aye. Okay, motion carries. That brings us to F4, open the public hearing for CSEA Chapter 75 and Santa Rosa City Schools proposal for 2017-2018 contract reopeners. I have no blue cards, so I will close the public hearing. It brings me to F5, an action item on the same topic.
CSEA and Santa Rosa City Schools present these openers collaboratively to the board for their approval. Thank you.
Any questions from the board? Comments? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Director Christoph, second by Director Pugh. Roll call vote, please.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Fong? Director Carl? Director Anderson? Director Sheffield? President Close?
We lost our student limit. Okay, motion carries, and that brings us to F6, discussion item fiscal recovery stabilization plan.
Good evening, Superintendent, Board of Trustees, Andre Bell, Assistant Superintendent, Business Services, and we have Joel Dantos, the Executive Fiscal Director, as well as members of the Cabinet. Tonight, we are just going to, for your discussion on the fiscal stabilization plan and just give you some ideas of how we got here and what we're trying to do going forward. Basically, the district faces a structural deficit currently, which is basically a deficit ongoing costs of the programs exceed our revenue as we are going into it as the current fiscal year in the last couple of years. So the idea is to correct that fiscal deficit going forward. As mentioned earlier, the Budget Advisory Committee was really a committee set up by the district on behalf of the community who wanted feedback in the budget process for the Santa Rosa City Schools. So basically, we set up the committee, and the committee is made up of community and local business members, as well as principals nominated, parents, students, directors nominated, some of the principals, the Santa Rosa Teachers Association and the California School Employees Association nominated their representatives to the committee. The Budget Committee has held 7 meetings currently throughout the fiscal year, and we want to thank them all for their community service. They have actually done a really good job, and they've actually had very probing and inquiring questions on the process for the Santa Rosa City Schools budget as we went forward. Then they have worked on the possible budget solutions. The process included creating the budget solutions that were agreed upon. At the start, the Budget Advisory Committee agreed to the process, possible solutions created by the district staff and departments. The committee deliberated over 3 iterations of the budget possible solutions, and we also had a town hall meeting where there was a 4th iteration of the budget solutions. So in addition to the representatives on the committee, we also received feedback from principals and the staff advisory committee, DAC. We also had, I went to several sites to discuss possible budget solutions with members of the staff and explain that process as well. So basically, we've been trying to our best to make this as transparent process as possible going forward. And as we go forward, one of the things that we continue to update is how we are facing structural deficit. When we first started, one of the things that we continue to explain is in 17-18, the district had to reduce its budget for about $4.56 million. As we started into the preparation for 18-19, our reductions currently were $5 million plus 2, which made it $7 million. After the collective bargaining agreement was completed, that went up due to that process. Now, what we did have was information from the state that we had on January 10th, the state was going to update a proposal for ADA going forward into next year, as well as close the LCAP funding, and that was done 2 years earlier. So basically what we face going forward is budget reductions of $6.2 million in 18-19, 19-20, an additional 6.5, which combined for the multi-year projections come to about $12.8 million. And as we've stated before, we have one-time funding that we will receive in 18-19, which is about $4.2 million. So the discussion is a fiscal stabilization plan as tonight, and pardon me, it's broken out into 5 categories: revenue enhancement, in A, certificated staff, in B, classified staff, in C, in transportation, and D, and other items that we were considered before the Budget Advisory Committee. clearly understand all these items were items that were on the original possible budget solutions, and we just brought them forward to the fiscal plan moving forward. With that, we will move on and take any questions or comments.
President, oh, wait, President, we have lots of blue cards, yeah. Well, do you believe?
Yes, we do.
Oh, sorry, budget advisory committees could, I'd like them to be introduced and thanked.
If you could stand.
Says Mr. Gosby, thank you for being here. Any other members that were brave enough to come tonight? No.
Okay, well then we'll go, thank you, Andre. We'll go to our blue cards. We'll start with, we have a whole lot of these, and so we're going to do 2 minutes tonight. We'll start with Steve Forrest. After Steve is Joe Silvestri, and then Scott Wallach. Steve?
Hi. I thought I had, in the past it's always been 3 minutes, so excuse me, it may go a little over 2, but I apologize. I want to talk about Groundhog Day, as in the movie, the feeling that no matter what you do, no matter how outrageous or ridiculous or cunning or even stupid your own actions are, the same old thing will continue to happen, almost as if you weren't even really an agent in your own life. This is what this current budget cliff feels like. I say current because really, how long have we been experiencing this? Remember when we stopped having any money for librarians anymore? How long have we been fighting for crumbs to fund the most basic concern of health care? I wonder what it's like for my friends who work at jobs where they can set a working thermostat for heat in the winter and AC in the winter. AC in the summer. But it's not just the apparent lack of money that's so depressingly recurrent. It's also that we are told the same thing, that there's really nothing we can do about it. Our hands are tied. We mean well, but we just can't. Moreover, whatever numbers the decisions were based on and whatever methods were used to justify those numbers are just sort of quicksilver fancies that dance in, catch our interest for a moment, and then move on. I understand that running a great, big, complicated organization with lots of masters and players and arcane rules and funding sources is a nightmare. I don't want your jobs. And that you need to cut the money where the money is. And I really appreciate the leadership you all have shown during the fire. What I don't understand is why are the choices in that list the only choices? Despite the recent labor cliffhanger, despite years of unhappy negotiations with teachers whose morale has had a one-way ticket down, the best, most creative way to cut expenses is by cutting teachers. Did not see that one coming. More critically, why is it always this way? What Mr. Bell said, the structural deficit. There are other comparable school districts that seem to have figured this stuff out. What's wrong with us? The $2 million accounting error, the bus contract that nobody seemed to recognize could offer millions in savings. I have one paragraph left. May I have time for that?
Yep.
Thank you very much. The chronic, never-ending need to cut despite whatever ups and downs occur in revenue. The use of consultants to do what? Why even have a budget committee? All they are charged with is deciding from among choices which already presuppose what is and isn't possible, and which obscure any possibility for real accountability. To quote Monty Python, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired of being sick and tired. I can't offer you a solution, and even if I did, I'm not sure it would even matter, and that's my point. That's what needs to change, the sense that all this is just gonna keep happening.
Okay, Joe Silvestri, and then Scott Wallach. Thank you.
I raise this. That's fun. Okay. Good evening. My name is Joe Silvestri. I just wanted to give a perspective on a third-year teacher in Santa Rosa City Schools. Quick intro. I usually don't like to talk about myself, but for my point, I will. I'm a Sonoma County guy. My whole life lived in Sonoma County. I'd love to stay in Sonoma County. I love the people. I love the community. I love the culture. Educational experiences, variety of them. I've worked in tutoring situations where I worked with athletes at the high school level as well as at the middle school level. I've worked with students, Spanish-speaking students as well. I taught English in Chile, working for the Ministry of Education there. Refined my Spanish there as well, which has gotten rusty over the years, but still get to use it with some of my students today. Went to UC Davis, where I got my credential and master's. Ended up in this district, which is awesome back home. It's where I turned down jobs at other districts to work here. I love my staff and students at Maria Carrillo High School. And I do love this community. However, as a student and teacher of social sciences, I can't ignore certain things. Talking about immigration, we often talk about push and pull factors. And in a good society, you try to create as many pull factors to your society and limit the push factors. And thinking about where I'm at today in this district, I don't know if I see enough pull factors keeping me here. Also teaching economics, we talk about cost-benefit analysis and rational choice theory. And as a rational actor, I have to weigh these costs and benefits of my decisions. And my question is, are we creating enough benefits and pull factors to keep young teachers such as myself here? I don't have a spouse, I don't have a home that I own, and I don't have a family. I would like all of those things. I'm single. I would like all of those things. It is Valentine's Day. And I would like them to be here in Santa Rosa. But again, I don't know if I can rationally make that decision to stay. So please help people like me that are in the amount of experience that we have, the position that we have to make us want to stay. And accentuate the pull factors, right? There is a lot here, but all we hear right now is the push factors. So thank you and happy Valentine's Day.
Okay, Scott, and then Maddie Doyle. And Joe, would you like me to give out your number now? Well, I've got it.
Hello, my name is...
It's a value add by the superintendent. It's matchmaking services.
Hello, my name is Scott Wallach. I'm also a third-year social science teacher at Maria Carrillo High School, just like Joe. I'm here to speak about the proposed budget solutions, as everybody else is. At the recent budget town hall meeting, our Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, Andre Bell, stated that he believes that our focus going forward should be on providing our students with the best possible education. I think that's something that everyone in this room can agree on. Unfortunately, as many of us will state tonight, I do not believe the district's proposal to stabilize the budget falls completely in line with that sentiment. Santa Rosa City Schools is planning on solving the budget crisis primarily by cutting teaching positions. 69% of the $7.4 million that are being cut come from the certificated section of the budget. 48% of the cuts come directly from cutting teaching jobs at numerous levels. These include positions that my colleagues have and will discuss more in detail tonight. This does not seem like a way to provide our students with the best possible education going forward. Personally, I would be most affected by the district cutting 27 FTE from the 4th through 12th grade levels. This amounts to 135 sections if we're talking about secondary. Last year, the district cut 69 sections at the secondary level. Cutting this many sections in 2 years will decimate the ranks of young teachers throughout our school district and increase class sizes by a substantial margin. In 2008, I walked across the stage at Maria Carrillo High School and received my high school diploma. I had made the decision that I wanted to teach social science at Carrillo, come back and teach at my old school. All the way through the JC, UC Davis, and SSU, I never once regretted that decision. When I had to sub for 2 years waiting to get a chance to teach at Maria Carrillo High School, I never regretted that decision. When I pushed through an extremely tough first year of teaching, I never regretted that decision. Over the last year and a half, I have seen that this district has chosen to make cuts to stabilize the budget crisis by eliminating teaching positions. This has been the first time that I've regretted my decision to work in Santa Rosa City Schools. The message you are sending to our young teachers is that we are expendable and we need to worry about our jobs. Please, as Will Lyon said, use a scalpel instead of a hatchet.
Thank you, Maddie Doyle, and then Gina Ruppel.
Good evening. I also timed myself at around 3 minutes, so I'll try to talk fast, which is not hard for me. My name is Maddie Doyle. I teach English at Maria Creel High School. I am here tonight on this incredibly romantic Valentine's Day to express my concerns with the district's proposed budget cuts and with what I feel is a general lack of respect in the district's messaging about those budget cuts. When we are told that we are in a financial crisis that could result in teacher layoffs, and we still have consultants in our district who take home almost as much in a day as I do in a month, that feels disrespectful. The district has a confusing habit of prioritizing that teachers from different schools collaborate with each other rather than allowing us time to collaborate at our own sites, thus creating a false demand for new consultants and programs for us to work under. While I believe that this is a well-intentioned plan, if we're really in as dire financial straits as we are told we are, there's no need to pay anyone but teachers to work on professional development days. We are professional educators, and if we cannot be trusted to work together at our sites on a PD day, then our district has more problems than financial ones. In addition, when this financial crisis is completely out of the hands of our teachers, yet they are the ones living in fear that their jobs or sections will be cut next year, that feels disrespectful. We were hired to teach, and even though our classrooms are crowded and excessively hot or excessively cold, and we still cannot afford to see a doctor, we're doing a pretty good job at teaching. I do not make this claim lightly, but there is no one in this room who works harder for the children of Santa Rosa than we do. Our daily existence is one that is intellectually, emotionally, and financially taxing, and it's not okay that we are expected to bear the brunt of a problem we didn't create. Lastly, when we are told that the district is trying to keep the cuts as far away from the classroom as possible, and are then presented with a list of potential budget solutions that focuses on cutting teachers, that feels disrespectful. Granted, while home and hospital teachers are by definition away from the classroom, that does not make them an acceptable cut either. The district states that they are feeling rushed in this decision-making process, but they are also planning on cutting over $1 million more than what is necessary to cut this year. These are people's jobs. These are children's teachers. One more paragraph. I know the board is always in the difficult position of making choices based on the best advice they're given. I admittedly do not have a lot of solutions to offer tonight, as I am not a member of the district office personnel, and I am not compensated like one. I did have the unique privilege of sitting at the negotiations table. I know the budget is ugly, but what the board cannot authorize to provide us in financial compensation, you can authorize to provide us in respect. Please respect our positions, please respect our professionalism, and please respect our voices in this decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina Ruppel, and then Lindsay Rose, and then Marjorie Hills. Gina? Sorry. After Gina is Lindsay Rose, and then Marjorie Hills.
Good evening. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Restorative Specialist team. Beforehand, I'd like to just say Happy Valentine's Day, Happy Heart Day. That's the work that we do for Santa Rosa City Schools in servitude of our students and our staff and everyone that is involved with our community. We brought and we give you a gift. It's a cup that's up there by you. It's full of Valentine hearts for you all. And on that cup it says, "What if?" And I believe that everybody here tonight has that same attitude as if, what if? What is the perfect scenario? And that's never easy to look at. Generally, I'm up here speaking from the heart, but today I'm going to try really hard to stay to my letter. All right. This is a compilation of our team. To our esteemed superintendent and board, we know it is your fiduciary responsibility to balance the budget and that this year's budget cuts place you in an undesirable position. The restorative team would like to open conversation about how to best meet students, faculty, staff, and district's overall needs. By presenting the following, we hope to engage in a dialogue with you about how to maintain the integrity of SRCS's commitment to restorative justice practices, as well as being mindful of the fiscal challenges and the fair process in doing so. The restorative team was originally conceived as being comprised of 18 restorative specialists to serve 26 school sites. These positions were also created with the knowledge of the skill set of said specialists, which would normally be categorized as a certificated position, but our district chose to have a larger team at a classified salary with an intensified training and support, hence the 11-month position. Last year, the team was reduced to 14 specialists, which for most schools necessitated a 50% reduction of dedicated on-site hours. In 4 years, this is the first year where we've had a solid team with an administrative leader whose time is dedicated to a positive cultural climate shift for our district and schools. In light of that, we only have 18 months of our transformational school grant. We believe that it would be in the best interest of our district to continue to invest in what is possible. By gaining a foothold of sustainability, positive behavioral intervention systems, and restorative practices, which equates to a high support and accountability in both discipline, social and emotional learning at all school sites, it's only advantages to the goals of the LCAP with the continued development of the multi-tiered structures. That was my buzzer. And so there's several things on the list, and I would like to go through them all. I actually gave you each a copy of the letter. I don't know where to go forward with that other than to say that with utmost respect, we're here to support you. And then also at the time of the fires, we were one of the first responders that came onto the sites to help at each site with the students and the staff. So I just wanted to keep that in mind as well.
Thank you. We have your letter. Thanks.
Thank you.
Lindsay Rose, then Marjorie Hills, and then Danita Haynes.
Sorry, I had to come down here because I'm really extra. Hi, guys. So today I kind of just wanted to make it quick, which I think is kind of funny. I spoke on my birthday and canceled my plans, and I'm speaking on Valentine's Day and canceled my plans, so I guess I'm kind of passionate about what I have to talk about. A couple of my main concerns were restorative and home hospital. Like I said at the meeting, was it last week at Town Hall? I'm losing track of time, but to cut the restorative work year from 11 months to 10 months would be a mistake. You're taking a month away of critical training time, which is super important going into, a new school year. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into, and you need that time to process. You really need that time to get yourself ready because every year is different. You can't always stick to the same training and the same principles because you never know what's going to happen. What I have to say about home hospital is that I'm here mostly because of my home hospital teacher, Marge, who I saw up there. She and my grandma had to fight to get me out of bed because I just couldn't do it. And I wouldn't have been able to go back to school without them, which I'm grateful that I was able to. I don't think that home hospital teachers should be cut. Anything that has to do with electives, I don't think that that should be cut. Our teachers are overworked as it is. I TA for an amazing teacher who I feel so terrible for because I see that she's on the verge of, an anxiety attack or a breakdown, and I'm like, what can I do to help? And unfortunately, since I'm just a student, I can't do much. So I really think that there are other options that should be discussed. I grew up with 2 accountants for the county, and it's become a dinner time topic for 3 weeks. I just think that there are other options. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Marjorie Hills, and then Danita Haynes and Rosalinda Brady. And we're going to try to keep it, we have a whole lot more of these, so we're going to try to keep you to 2 minutes, okay?
Okay, so my name is Marjorie Hills, and I've been a home and hospital teacher with Santa Rosa City Schools for 27 years. And this is the first time I've spoken to the board. I had a whole speech planned about why you shouldn't cut the home and hospital program, but I've scratched that. So I wanted to talk about that the money saved would be minimal, that the neediest students Those with no other options will be those hit the hardest, adding to the inequity which already exists. I was going to read a few of the comments that parents sent in from questionnaires that Home and Hospital has been sending out dating back to 2006. Not a single response from the parents found the program to be not helpful. How often does that happen, that people complete a questionnaire just to say how helpful a program is instead of complaining about it? But instead of that speech, I'd just like to ask a question. How does the district intend to replace this state-mandated program? I think the irony of all this is that the district is constantly searching for ways to increase ADA, increase equity, and increase graduation rates. And they already have a very successful program that helps with all of these, and that's Home and Hospital. I think I tend to see issues in shades of gray, not black and white. But this I am sure of: cutting Home and Hospital doesn't benefit anyone. Not the district, not the schools, not the teachers, and certainly not the students and their parents. So please find a way to keep this successful and vital program. Thank you.
Danita Haynes, then Rosalinda Brady, and then Mavis Jukes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Danita Haynes, and I've been a home and hospital teacher in this district for almost 20 years. I'm speaking to you tonight because I am very concerned about the district's proposal to cut the home and hospital program. Home and Hospital is a state-mandated program that serves the district's most vulnerable students. Students are suffering with leukemia, brain tumors, and kidney disease. Students who have eating disorders, and students who are suicidal. The Home and Hospital program provides these medically fragile students with home instruction so that they and their families can focus their energies on getting well without the added stress of having to worry about falling behind in school. If you ask any of the home and hospital teachers here tonight, we would tell you that there have been problems in the past with the way the program has been administered. With 13 directors over the past 20 years, there has been little consistency and oversight, and at times, students have been placed on the program when they might have been better served in other ways. But this is not the students' fault. Cutting the home and hospital program and denying students who truly need these services is not the answer. The amount of money that the district would save by doing this is minuscule and pales in comparison to the benefits that this vital program provides to our school community. On behalf of all the students and families in our community who need and deserve this important program, I urge you to do the right thing and keep the home and hospital program intact. Thank you.
Rosalinda Brady, and then Mavis Jukes. After Mavis Jukes is Peggy. I'm going to butcher this. Help me out when you're up. And if everyone could queue up and be ready to go so that we could have more time to discuss these items, that would be great.
So, hi, I'm Rosalinda Brady. I'm a home and hospital teacher. I think you have heard from me before. These books, I work out of them every day. In other words, every day I go through all of those books. There's 2 U.S. history books. Guess what? They're different. I know what's in here, and I know what's in here. Common Core, they're here. Fortunately, I have a teacher's edition that helps me to teach. Science, I got 3 of them, 3 different books for 3 different students. So I do a lot of work, and I love my job. So one of the budget cut proposals pertains to alternative education staff. It turns out that the alternative education staff was defined at the budget cut meeting as 3.5 home teachers. There are only 4 FTE home teaching positions. So dropping 3.5 means that the home and hospital will only have a half-time teacher to educate students who are medically unable to go to school. Currently, there are approximately 14 students on this program right now. So a half-time teacher would be teaching only 2 to 3 students a day. A half-time teacher cannot teach 11 students a day because each student gets 1 hour each day, and that would mean the teacher would be teaching 14 hours. So the reasons for these cuts stated in the budget draft is to realign alternative education services to increase student access to both alternative and comprehensive school services at the school sites. What does that mean? Students who need home and hospital services are students who are struggling with their illness and the school setting is not working for them. The home and hospital teachers helps to increase access to school by talking to the teachers, counselors at school, getting work, processing it, and pacing it so that the student is not overwhelmed. The home and hospital teacher is a vital key, yet the district wants to do away with them. Who are these students? They have operations, broken bones, Lyme disease, et cetera, et cetera. They need teachers who will spend time and help them learn. Often, the learning translates into more self-confidence so that they recover faster and stronger.
Okay, Rosalind, I need you.
I got 2 more lines to read.
Go ahead.
And return to school faster. Don't shortchange these students. What about our school district slogans? Every student, every possibility. What about we care? Thank you.
Thank you. Mavis Jukes. And then Peggy.
Hi, I'm Mavis Jukes, and I'm Marguerite Jukes' daughter. And my mom, Marguerite Jukes, was a public school teacher, and she taught in Berkeley until she was 76 years old, and she's one of my heroes. And tonight, I'm just here to talk about just what's ethical and what's right or wrong, because like everybody here, I learned about what's right or wrong from my parents, and in particular from my mom. So the home and hospital teachers were put on the pay scale as part of our negotiations, and on all along, I always voted yes on the agreements because I saw the district was being fair and treating them fairly, and I wanted them to be treated fairly, and I wanted to support them. So after being placed on the pay scale, we all know this, I'm just saying it, after being placed on the pay scale, then 3 weeks later, their positions were taken away. And so here's what I'm asking the board. I'm just asking you for this. Please just remove that solution from the proposal. Just take it off. It's wrong. It's unethical. And we're better than that. This whole district is better than that. You just can't promise people something like that. Do I feel like I was tricked? I do. Do I feel like I was scammed? That too. But this is not about me. This is about what we agreed on and what we promised these teachers, and now it's just like that, never happened. Your jobs are gone. So please just draw a line through it and let's move on and find some other ways to save money. Thank you.
Peggy, and what's your last name?
Bohannon.
Bohannon. And then after that is Tyler O'Brien and then Dave Gwine. Peggy, go ahead.
So I'm Peggy Bohannon, and I'm a mother who had a sick child. Being able to have my son participate in the home and hospital program, combined with having an outstanding, experienced home and hospital teacher, made a huge positive impact on my son. My son had a medical condition that did not allow him to be able to go to school on campus. My son loved school, and it was hard for him to miss out on the normal school experience and not be able to see his friends. But having the home and hospital program at least gave us some hope that he wouldn't fall too far behind academically while tending to his medical issues. When my son was sick, it was a stressful time, but knowing that he could still work towards his educational goals gave us some relief. We had an amazing home and hospital teacher. Not only did she teach my son, but she was able to work around how he was feeling day to day, and she knew how to get him motivated and engaged in what he was studying. Some days were easier than others. If my son had to be lying on the couch, she made it work. If he was in a lot of pain, she understood. She had the perfect balance of being empathetic while pushing him when he needed it. My son needed her. He needed someone to be in it with him and to encourage him. He needed a teacher that would hold him accountable, and she did. She was committed to him and his success. Even though there were physical things my son could not do, he still had the ability to learn and do schoolwork. To have him spending some time focusing on schoolwork was a good thing. My son eventually recovered, and though due to timing, he didn't get to walk across that stage and get his diploma, he passed his high school equivalency exam, and I know for a fact it was because of his home and hospital teacher. My son is now in his second semester at college and is doing great. I believe that there is a good possibility that if the home and hospital program had not been available, my son would have given up on school completely. Please don't take away funding from this program. Families that are dealing with a sick child go through enough stress as it is. Knowing that they can at least keep their child on track with their education makes a world of difference, and having a teacher that is committed to helping your child is truly a gift. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Tyler O'Brien, and then Dave Gwine, and then Melissa Matson. Tyler? You're up.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I'd come downstairs, but
You're great there.
it's hard to use stairs. Hello, my name is Tyler O'Brien. I'm currently a student at the SRJC. I'm a deaf studies major, hoping to one day find a career in American Sign Language interpreting. And I'm here today to talk about the cuts to the home and hospital program. Growing up, I had a condition, or still have a condition, called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, type 3 hypermobility type. I'm sure you all know of it. It's a genetic condition that leaves me very much impaired, and it leaves me in a wheelchair. I deal with very potent chronic pain, and it makes attending school and things as such extremely difficult. And so when I was in high school, the home and hospital program was given as an opportunity for me, and I think without it, I would not be where I am today. The home and hospital program, I think, has most definitely changed my life in more ways that I could have possibly imagined. The teachers that I met through it gave me not only the education that I needed, but a yearn to learn, something that I never thought I could have gotten. And to see this proposed cut to the program is both saddening and disappointing. I think it is a complete disservice to all of the disabled and ill students that rely on the program. I think it's borderline insulting, honestly. And I'm sure there are a lot of students that wanted to be here to protest against this, but couldn't because they are trapped either in home or in hospital. I believe that this budget in some way should be reworked to allow the home and hospital program to flourish, as anything less would be a disservice to all of the disabled and ill students who require it. Anyway, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Dave Gwine, Melissa Matson, and then Ginger Maddock. Dave.
Yes, good, excuse me. Good evening, school board members. Like
My name is David Gwine, and I have a child in the district. I took the time to read through the budget challenges and recommendations of the advisory committee to have us all align with the district revenues with budget. I recognize there are no easy answers to hit the reduction targets, and that the recommendations are across multiple areas. And I understand here, listening tonight, that one proposal that has a lot of attention is considering the item called B7, reduction in alternative education staff, which means eliminate the home-to-hospital program in its current form. This is to urge you to not consider that budget idea and instead sustain the program in its current form as a reasonable accommodation for our most vulnerable students. Speaking as a parent who watched my child collapse from honor student and varsity athlete to one barely sustaining her studies due to a severe illness, the presence of a compassionate teacher visiting our home has made the difference for Taylor to sustain any chance of academic success. We are confident that Taylor would have continued to fall further behind without that direct teacher presence and focus in those learning moments. Much like there are learning moments in the classroom, for a child with a temporary 504 accommodation, those learning moments occurred at our kitchen table. We would lose students like my daughter if they were to rely solely on remote communication without the benefit of present and direct instruction in the moment. Please maintain this program in its current form for all of our medically verified students who need that special accommodation. I thank you for your time, but more importantly, I really do thank you for your service.
Thank you. Melissa Matson and then Ginger Maddock. Melissa. Ginger.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said Melissa.
I did, but I don't see a Melissa.
Okay.
Melissa Matson? Ginger Maddock.
Hi, just a few words just from my heart on this special day. If you would like to do a shout out to my husband. Hi, honey. I'll be home soon. I'm sure he's waiting for me. It's Valentine's Day. I'm here because I not only believe in us, the teachers, but this district. I love this district. I have to. I've committed myself full 110%. But I look at you, I look at everyone left in this room, and I think, wow, we are so fortunate, at least I am. I have 2 children, and those 2 children, thank goodness, were able to attend school. They don't have any handicaps. Learning, emotional, medically fragile. I am a special ed teacher, and I teach students with these needs. The idea of removing these teachers from teaching these special students that thank goodness none of us have, and my heart goes out to all of you that have a special needs student, is appalling. It's disgusting. These are the students that need us the most. Please, use a scalpel. We do not need to cut these teachers. The home and hospital are saints. I would never carry that huge bag of books. I couldn't figure out all those different various chemistry books. They're saints. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I will bring it back to the board for questions, comments. Director Fong and then Director Christoph.
Thank you to all the teachers, staff, and people who come to speak on behalf of this today. As having experience with the home and hospital program, I know full well how difficult the job is and how needed the teachers are, and also how tough we have it right now when we're looking at the budget. It's like, oh my gosh. Okay, just a clarification. Diane, I don't know what the home and hospital teacher caseload is. Is there such a thing?
Steve, do you want to respond to that?
At a maximum caseload, students, because they mentioned earlier they're meeting with students an hour a day, it's approximately 6 students a day that each person can keep on caseload.
And kids get seen every day an hour or 1 hour a week? Every day an hour?
Every day an hour.
So they can have 6, because they go to 6 students' houses, that's 6+ hours a day?
Yes.
Okay. All right. For now, that's my question.
Director Christoph.
Andre, I want to thank you and all the people that were on the Budget Committee. I got to attend one meeting, and I really appreciate what was going on. The process to me was a step in the right direction. I think we can always look for improvement. I hope to make the last Budget committee meetings that are scheduled. I almost feels like we're in Afghanistan. Since I've been on the board, it seems like we've been fighting this battle over and over and over again. And it's kind of sad, because after the Great Recession, we thought, well, maybe we're on the upswing, but obviously we're not. I feel like I have a little prepared statement. I feel like I've given this speech a bunch of times as well. But budgets are about priorities. And for me, it's, the main priority. I mean, we can go through this and nitpick and cut little things here and there and argue over a bunch of things, but I like to keep it simplistic in terms of my role on the board. I will say that my priority is not to increase class sizes. As a long-term teacher, I can tell you how important it is to have a manageable class, how important that is to learning. For me, everything else is secondary and support for that basic idea. California's class size ratio ranks as one of the highest in the nation. We're all too aware of this and how inadequate state funding is as well. This severely limits what local officials can do because this is a state purview. That is large amounts of money that come to us. But we do have some flexibility. Historically, Santa Rosa City Schools has recognized the importance of class size in learning and has done what it could to contain it. That is, this district, I think over the years, many different board members, many different superintendents has recognized how important that is in the learning process. That is limiting or doing what we can to keep our class sizes small as we can. I am very troubled with the idea that we should increase class to cut the budget, to balance our budget, take care of our structural deficit. I have a bunch of questions, and I'm not going to go through these tonight. I'll forward them to you, Andre, and it probably will necessitate talking to some other people as well. But they have to do with class size ratios. It has to do with enrollment. It has to do with, a variety of things that do impact class sizes. I see increasing class size as a means to save money. This is a slippery slope. There is no better way to promote quality education than to keep class sizes manageable. I think to do otherwise is self-defeating. So for me, what I'll do is forward those questions and then formulate a formal response again for our final decision, which is coming up next week, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So thank you again for what you're doing. And again, I would encourage my fellow board members to please consider class size as a very important criterion that we not touch in terms of cutting the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Christoph. Director Carl?
Thanks. A few questions. On the restorative specialists moving from 11 months to 10 months, do we have a sense of whether that would have any impact on losing people?
The sense of talking to individuals is some of them are concerned about their positions and the salaries and everything, and there's a sense that that may happen.
Okay. On the home and hospital, how many students are currently on home and hospital?
To date, the current caseload is 27.
So 27 divided by 6 is 4 and something, and we have 4.5 teachers?
Right now, it's a total of 4.0.
Okay. What's been the historical numbers for that? Or if you've got them, great. If not, if we can have them back on the 28th.
No, since we've been tracking, really as we managed the program better, we had in 15-16, we had 86 students that went through the process. The FTE was a little higher there, but just an average caseload was about 14 students that each person would see throughout the year. The next year we came down to FTE reduced. I think one of the teachers retired, FTE reduced to about 66 for the entire school year. And again, the average caseload was about 14. And then the numbers have dropped this year again to 27 with still the FTE. And so the average right now we're looking at this year is about 8. So we've gone from an average caseload of about 14 a year currently to about 8.
Help me with the numbers. If I've got 8 students and, well, frankly, let's do it this way. If I've got 14 students and I have to give them 1 hour a day, how do I pull that off?
That number is just an average, but it is a maximum of 6 students, still average throughout the entire school year. So you may get 6 now, you may not have 6, 8 weeks from now, you may get 6 coming back.
Okay. What's an appropriate number to be effective? 14?
No, 6. Obviously, as a caseload, 6 is, but historically 14 has been. And that's kind of the target that we feel would be appropriate going forward, depending on the caseload.
And do we do any analysis of the program in terms of who we're serving vis-a-vis the requirement, the state mandate, as opposed to who's being served and perhaps ought to be served in another fashion with respect to alternative ed? Has there been any analysis of that?
We have been, and that's part of the management that we've done the last couple of years. We've incorporated other processes and protocols that other districts have used and created kind of a real engagement process that happens at a school site to initiate at first, having things like a school psychologist involved if it is a mental health issue, having a school nurse involved if it is a physical issue, requiring doctors to come and sign that they believe the student is appropriately placed at home and not another arrangement. Meaning there's a continuum of possible settings where they could serve students. The intent from the California Department of Education is that literally there's people in home hospitals, like if you're in Memorial Hospital here, Sutter Hospital, our district has an obligation to bring school to them if necessary. Then the other things, if they are restricted to the home and obviously can't get out and can't participate in a partial day, in an independent study, or some other continuum of services, then that's appropriate placement for that. And we want to certify that with a doctor, because doctors also encourage as best they can peer-to-peer action and peer-to-peer interaction and getting back to normal classrooms as soon as possible.
Okay. A couple of other areas. Extra duty pay reduction. Does this mean we have fewer people doing the work, or my only concern here is whether there's going to be a safety issue, and it's unclear to me whether it's fewer people, it's fewer hours. What's the impact?
This is really looking in and examining the services that are being, some of it's supervision, a lot of it is after school instruction. So really looking at how do we better classify those expenditures and see what we can do to remove some of those from base into other areas if we're providing extended learning opportunities. But some of it does involve supervision, and we don't want to create situations where safety is put on hold for a monetary purpose.
On the student-teacher ratio, reduction of 27 teachers, in the past we have averaged somewhere in the neighborhood of about 30 retirements a year. Is that an accurate number?
Yeah, that has, over the last, since I've been doing this position, it's been approximately 30 a year.
Any reason to believe it's going to be any different this year?
We have been steadily getting retirements as we do usually after the winter break. So at this point, I could look to see and get that information to the board to see where we were on February 14th of last year to kind of give us a gauge of where we might be on target or on pace.
But it's never that easy either, is it?
No.
In that the 30 people retire, that they aren't the exact 30 positions that you perceive you need or you don't need. and in fact, I suspect that it's probably nowhere near that. So how do you implement this?
You have to look at what openings, what can we absorb through attrition, and look at where we are overstaffed in subject areas by site. We've began looking at that information now to see once master schedules start being built and look at course enrollment. And there's a lot of things you have to take into consideration, but it's not as easy as saying, here's the line and this is what we're going to do, because there's, as you've mentioned, a lot of variables to take into consideration.
We're going to see some enrollment numbers later this year in some reports, right?
Yes.
At this stage, frankly, one of the biggest concerns that I've got is who shows up in the middle of August. I think we've got a lot of people that are not in school now because of the fires, and we've got a lot of people that are likely in school to be able to finish up the year. I think the true number is going to tell us in August. Are we getting any feedback from partner elementary districts or others that are going to help us understand where we are in that regard?
We are actually, the same demographer that was here earlier discussing the voter area maps is also working with us on getting that enrollment information. And I think this is the first time in many years we've had a higher level of cooperation in our feeder districts. I think all the feeder districts that have been impacted by the fires in October kind of wondering the same thing we're wondering. And it really is hard. The process of building master schedule and staffing is difficult anyway, because you're building on projections that are moving targets, and adding this level of uncertainty to it, especially when, as you mentioned, we have families that are holding on to get through the school year and maybe making decisions in the summer on where to go in August. And that's, at that point in the staffing situation, is beyond a point of making major changes in what we're doing.
Okay. The transfer cost for elementary prep and music teachers, it's going into LCAP funding, so we're not losing any music instruction. Is that accurate? Because
yes,
honestly, I raised this issue about 6 or 8 months ago and said I want to increase music instruction in the elementary district.
There has been
some stuff back.
This has been part of the plan that that CNI, and I'll be speaking on behalf of Annika Duhamsik, working with our music teachers in the district to look to what we can do to expand to provide a more coherent and equitable access to music across our elementary districts.
Okay. Help me on the bus route services. Number one, I don't get a sense that that the savings that we were told we were going to get is going to happen every year. I think we were sold a bill of goods, frankly, and that was an unfortunate situation. But what's the impact of a route being taken out? As long as it's not increasing the time for students to get to school, because that's already an issue in some case, that actually may make some sense. But is there some implication there that we're a better understanding of what that implication is?
That's what we're looking at, to be quite honest with you. The reduction of routes, or the combining of routes, is how we look to see if we can achieve that particular savings going forward. So we are working with the West County and reviewing that. We've had a meeting with them last month, and we have another meeting planned coming forward to see how we can improve the scheduling without, sacrificing the staffing or time to have students get to school. So it's a combination of both.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of general comments. I've been, as Frank has, been through this process in the worst way, through the 2008, 2009, 2010 recession. And there's no aspect of this that is easy. And I said a lot back then that I say now, oftentimes to people that email us, when you tell me you don't want to cut something and tell me the impacts, I appreciate that. That's helpful. But please follow that up with what would you do instead? Fortunately, in this situation, we've got 7.4 million worth of suggestions and 6.2 million worth of cuts. So we're actually allowed to have something that I don't think we've ever had that I can recall, which is some ability to not do some of these things as we go through on weighing. I do very much appreciate the process. the involvement of SRTA, the involvement of community folks, the willingness to get in there and work with a lot of different stakeholders. Honestly, the district in that process has to bring something forward, and some of those things are not palatable, and if we can figure out a way to reduce from 7 to 6.2 and deal with some of those, that's going to be great. It's very clear, though, that some of these numbers we're just going to have to bite the bullet and move forward to be able to get to 6.2. But there was a suggestion that why are we in this and we seem to be alone. I can tell you that I've talked to a lot of people, and Frank isn't sitting here right now, but Ron is. There is virtually no district in this state that isn't dealing with this. The hundreds of teachers that have been lost in San Diego, LA, and a number of other areas in the last year is testament to the fact that this is not this district. There aren't accounting errors that have created a big loss of money somewhere. The fact of the matter is, and we all know it, and we all talk about it, and our president talked about it today in suggesting that we need to, press the business community and the rest of the community to be talking about adequate funding, is that we are inadequately funded in the state of California. It's not this board's fault. It's not any other board's fault throughout the district, throughout the state of California, and there are virtually no districts that aren't dealing with the exact same thing. Don't put it on the people here, and don't put it on the people in the administration, but recognize that these folks are reaching out and looking for solutions. Everybody who talked today spoke clearly from the heart, and frankly, you can't disagree with any statement that was made. That if I'd love to get librarians back. I mean, I'd love to get some of the cuts that we made in 2008 and 2009. That doesn't solve the problem. And our responsibility is to solve the problem and be able to get a proper certification from SCO with respect to our budget. Because if we don't, it doesn't really matter what we're doing here, because then somebody comes in and takes it over. We're not going to allow that, because we care about the community. Every person who's still here and who was here all night cares about the community. So let's continue to work together with respect to it. And anybody who has seen anything in here where there is some suggestion that maybe we ought to be looking at something else, or there are other options, please bring them forward. Love to hear them. Thank you for the work. I appreciate very much. Don't like what we're having to do, but I appreciate that we have options so that we can weigh a lot of the things that have been discussed.
Dr. Sheffield?
I can get my microphone to work. I just want to thank the Budget Advisory Committee and Superintendent Bell, all of you, for the work that you've done so far, bringing us the proposed budget solutions. Director Christoph had talked about budgets being priorities, and so as Bill had just mentioned, I encourage all of you and I encourage the community to continue to express your priorities and bring your priorities forward. I will speak about a priority of mine, which is an issue that came up and will continue to come up for, who knows, maybe the foreseeable future. I like to think that there's an end to this, but this is the attraction and attaining teachers. I intend to look at the proposed cuts through that lens. And I don't think that we should give up on the goal of making the district a desirable place, especially for young new teachers. So, as we move forward, I know that we're talking about using scalpel precision, and maybe it's laser precision too. Maybe we need to get really into fine detail here. But I also just want us to keep, or help make this district that much more desirable. So just encourage us to do that in this process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to my colleagues for your good questions and comments, and I agree with most of them. I really appreciate staff's work on this and making sure that this has been an inclusive, collaborative process. I think it's been really a model, and I'm sure it will continue to get better. but it was a great process. I particularly appreciate, after going through the committee process, also producing the FAQs, which I think were very helpful to clear up some misunderstanding on issues and clarify positions. This is a position nobody wants to be in, and Director Carl is exactly right. We didn't land ourselves here, and we are not unique. This is a statewide problem. We are underfunded. We are chronically underfunded, but the demands of us continue to rise. So something has to give there, and I really appreciate your position in fighting for your students and fighting for yourselves and advocating strongly for yourself. And at the same time, we, boards and administrators and teachers all need to figure out how to come together and demand some kind of change, because this is way too much energy to spend fighting over the little bits of crumbs that the state leaves us when all of us have really important things to do and important things to spend our energy on, and you specifically in teaching your students. But we are where we're at. And not only are we where we're at, which is what every district is facing in the state, but we're also in this disaster recovery mode, and it's a total unknown. 800 of our students lost their homes in the fires, and 300 of them are not back. And that's now, and we don't know what's going to happen in August. We don't know if there's going to be a secondary regional recession that's going to cost us more students. And so while I hate to say this, I think this is a time where we're going to have to be really careful and probably pretty conservative in how we deal with our budget and how we deal with our money. So we have a lot of work and thinking to do, and we will be back in a week to make some decisions. Thank you.
Yep. So what we have a seat, we still got stuff to do. No, we're not moving on yet. Because what we need is we need direction from the board at this point, at least some preliminary direction from the board. Because what we had planned to do was bring back for the next meeting the fiscal stabilization plan. And I know I went to the restroom, so I may have missed something.
Well, I think I'll speak for, I think what I'm hearing is I actually don't know that we're in the position to do that. Well, I'm not hearing that. I think we need to look at these a little bit more carefully and have some time, and we're going to have to give you some direction individually throughout the week and make more decisions next week.
Okay, so the next board meeting was scheduled to be action, and so we're saying that should be you would like that to be a discussion?
I think that we can probably do both.
Yes.
Yes. I think that we can. I think we can do both.
Okay. All right. So we'll.
Anybody else have?
Just the 28th.
Yes, Director Fong.
So we heard tonight that so much of the budget is, in the classroom or staffing. And if we're looking at the student-teacher ratio, budget's
number 6.
It's number 6, right? It's 2.3 million, and that's a huge chunk of it. What I'm not sure, and I know rough numbers, is what percentage of our total budget, if we're looking at a pie chart,
So we have some work.
we're asking, where else can we cut versus classroom personnel? If we're looking at a pie chart, what percentage of that pie chart is staffing and personnel? Which portion of that pie chart is just program we can look at? Or get that later, or bring it to us later.
Are you talking about what percentage of our overall budget is staff?
Yeah, I think overall statewide, it's kind of like school districts are 80% personnel and 20% program or district. Is that about right?
Ours is a little different because we contract service so many, like our bus service is contracted. So our staffing cost is a little bit less than 80%. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, it's closer to about 70%, it's 72% that we have the staffing costs. I mean, we can give you the exact breakdown going forward, but yeah, roughly.
Yeah, so what's hard is, where's all the money being spent? How can we get, and this is what we have to grapple with, how we're going to get more money, a lot more money to make the $12 million cuts in 2 years that we have to get out of 20% of the budget. So I think the scalpel part and the laser part is we're looking for efficiencies, and we also can't, and Steve Forrest was here, and I know this is his burning thing and lots of ours too, is like we have to really better define class size with staffing ratio, I think. I think sometimes we get confused about that and what a staffing ratio really means for class size with retirement and class size differences of, 20 kids or 13 kids, and some teachers have 40 kids in their classroom, which is untenable, but we can't also have classes for 13 kids. So that's where we have 40, and master scheduling, of course, is where it all happens. The magic happens at master scheduling.
Yeah, definitely, and that's one of the things that was addressed in the FAQs that I think is helpful is the class size versus staffing ratio. We are not proposing any changes to class size in these cuts. But so, Superintendent, I think that the board members need a little time to digest this, and also perhaps get some further answers from staff on an individual basis, but I think still that we can go forward with an action item, with a discussion item and an action item on the 21st. We're just going to have to make decisions at that meeting.
Okay, so we'll put it as both a discussion and an action. Right. We will need to get questions as soon as possible because of the Monday and being able to get the documents up onto agenda. Now that one is, because it is a special board meeting, it's not the 72-hour time frame, but we still want to get the information up as quick as possible for the public. So just letting the board know we need your questions as soon as possible.
Fair enough. Everybody hear that? Okay. Director Pugh. He's just saying he will get his questions to you very quickly, is what he was saying. Is that what that was? That's what that was. Okay. F7, the pivot charter petition.
President Close, board members, Superintendent Kitamura, today I'm presenting on behalf of Dr. Guzman the petition to form the Pivot North Bay Charter. You have it in front of you, and I'd like to introduce presenting with us tonight is John Ye from Berks, Williams, and Sorensen, and Stephanie Farland from Charter Authorities. And with that, tell me when to push the buttons, Mr. Ye.
Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Kitamura, President Close, members of the board. Tonight you'll be making a decision on the Pivot North Bay Charter petition. This is your second go-around with the petition. You may recall that the first petition was submitted in September of last year. On November 15th, the board denied it by a vote of 7-0. rather than appealing to the county board, as is the procedure under the education code, Pivot resubmitted a petition with some modification in December. And you'll recall as background, this is one of 4 charter schools that Pivot operates throughout the state. So the particular charter school is actually a resource center that's operating within Santa Rosa, you may recall, not authorized by this board, but by the Oak Grove Union School District. So the resource center was operating outside the boundaries of the district that authorized it. You may recall that last 2 years ago, a court case came down by the name of Anderson that actually outlawed those resource centers and held that they had to be located within the boundaries of the authorizer. So charter schools like Pivot, who are operating resource centers outside the boundaries of their authorizer, obtained a waiver from the State Board of Education to continue those programs throughout the end of the 17-18 school year while they sought authorization of those resource centers from the authorizers, the district in which they were located. And that was the catalyst for the Pivot petition coming to you the first time and this time as well. Pivot, in addition to submitting the revised petition, also has asked the district to waive the rule that was established by the court in Anderson. The district has not responded to that. There's no reason for the district to waive the application of a clearly established rule to the charter school. So what the district has done is undertaken its statutory obligation to evaluate the revised petition under the criteria of the law. And Stephanie will walk through that, those legal standards.
Right, and the legal standards, good evening, Stephanie Farland. The legal standards have not changed since December 2017, so you'll be familiar with them. The statutory grounds for denying a petition are unsound educational program, that the charter petitioners are unlikely to successfully implement the program, signatures were insufficient, affirmations not clear, lacks reasonably comprehensive descriptions of the 15 charter criteria, or lacks declaration regarding collective bargaining. So if the board, and you know this because in December you did deny the petition, so if a board denies a petition, it must make findings in support of the denial, which you did in December, and you, if the petition is denied tonight, we will have findings to support that decision. So the review process, like I said before, we're all familiar with it. You know that there are 15 criteria, down from 16 from a couple of years ago, and that the descriptions must be reasonably comprehensive. The 15 criteria are listed there, and they're everything from description of the educational programs to measuring people outcomes, which is important. The governance structure of the school, admission requirements, means to achieve a racial and ethnic balance, auditing, suspension, expulsion procedures, district employee leave and return rights, procedures for closure of schools. So they're basically the same elements that we've had in law for a very long time.
A reminder on the legislative intent that the legislature intended that the encouragement of charter schools shall be encouraged, but a board shall not grant a charter unless it determines that doing so would be consistent with sound educational practice. Because this was actually a revised version of a previous petition, what the staff findings, you will notice, actually evaluate just the additions to the petition. And so we've created kind of a summary chart here summarizing the areas in which the petitioners revised the petition. And these are the areas that in the evaluation of staff determined that were not cured to the point where they met the criteria for a successful charter petition. So these are the areas where staff deemed that were not cured. For example, you'll recall that the original findings were really centered on the charter school's lack of success, both academically in terms of academic performance and in a very high attrition rates in those in its students' population. And those two significant performance issues did not change within the 1 month in between the denial of the petition and the resubmission of the new petition. There are some areas where the petition did make changes that met requirements of the law. Those were technical in nature, and those are listed there as well. But the petition, in the estimation of staff, still falls far short of meeting the standard for all 15 applicable elements.
Right. And as John said, there were several areas of the first petition that caused the staff concern and led to a recommendation for denial. And the summary of findings that you have here are pretty much the same summary of findings from the first petition, because they didn't, as John said, didn't change those areas. They didn't make revisions to those areas that were important, such as demonstrably unlikely to successfully implement the program. You know, obviously the performance levels of past performance couldn't change, so those are exactly the same. Student turnover historically for this school has been high, which is the same. So those are some of the areas that we had concerns with that obviously could not change from 1 month to the next. And the petition was not revised in a way that made any significant changes to curing these in the future. So tonight, the staff recommendation is to deny the petition to form the Pivot North Bay Charter School. The reasons for denial would be substandard student performance, high student attrition, a lack of rigor in the educational program as described in the petition, and as staff, Santa Rosa staff went to the charter school to observe, and they observed this as well in the actual educational setting, and lack of access to governing board for this particular charter school, lack of public access.
So as for the education code grounds for denying a petition, staff's conclusion is that the petition is deficient in 6 of the 15 required charter elements set forth in the education code, that the petition fails to contain a sound educational program, and that the petitioners are demonstrably unlikely to successfully implement this, the program set forth in the petition. Staff thereby recommends that the board vote to deny the petition and to adopt the staff report as its findings and support. Thank you.
Thank you for the report. Are any questions from the board?
President Close, I'd like to make a motion at the right time.
Go ahead.
I would like to move that the board accepts the staff's recommendation and does not authorize the pivot charter.
Okay, moved by Director Pugh, second by Director Carl. Roll call vote, please.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Okay, motion carries. We'll move on to F8, action item acceptance of the 2016-2017 independent audit report.
Okay, good evening. Once again, board, we're here to bring you the update on the audit, fiscal audit that's required for the district on an annual basis. Tonight we have Paul Van from the Savon and Associates, excuse me, and he will ask any questions you have on regarding the audit as we go forward.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for inviting me out to share with you the results of the June 30th, 2017 audit. I'll real quickly go over our audit process, hit on some key financial highlights, and then go over the results of the audit. So our audit, we adhere to AICPA's, they issue statements of auditing standards. There's government auditing standards that we adhere to. And because of the district's federal expenditures being in excess of the $750,000, it was also subject to the single audit. And every year, the state issues audit guides from the Education Audit Appeals Panel, which we follow as well in our audit. So just some of the key highlights. You'll note that net position decreased by $10.5 million. A big part of that had to do with GASB 68. So for those of you who are around, you remember that the pension expense from PERS and STIRS, that's now reported on the face of the financials. And so that's a big part of that. And keep in mind, next year, or this fiscal year, FY18, there's going to be a similar GASB pronouncement that's coming out for GASB 75. That's going to be affected by your OPEB plan, the post-employment plan that you guys have. If that were in place as of FY17, you would be looking at a $23.6 million deficit as well in terms of the OPEB liability on the face of your financials. One thing I did want to note, though.
Repeat that, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Speak into the mic a little bit better.
Yeah. So similar to GASB 68 that rolled out a few years ago, in fiscal 18, GASB 75 is coming out, and that will require you. Let me reference you to the page. Yes, I have a copy of it on the audit report, page 60. That's where we disclosed the information on the OPEB plan. And so right in the middle of page 60 there, the actuarial accrued liability. So this next coming year, you'll see that number or with any adjustments for the current year on the face of your financials, similar to what you saw with GASB 68 related to the PERS and STIRS pension plan. Okay, so just go back to GASB 68. I want you guys to keep in mind that is something that's amortized over a 30-year period. So there's no immediate impact to the district. And also, it doesn't have an impact on the funds other than the annual required contribution, which is the funding plan that the plan set out for all levels. So from the employee to the employer to the state level. So you'll see that the annual required contribution will be affected, but other than that, it does not affect the funds. The funds actually were fairly healthy this year. Overall, it increased $53.4 million. A big part of that was due to the bond issuance. So overall, the funds are healthy, but specifically to the general fund, which you guys deal with day in and day out, you did have deficit spending this year, but you guys do have a healthy reserve of 8.5, which is above what the state recommends. So you guys do have a healthy reserve. Next year, you guys have budgeted also deficit spending, but still a fairly healthy reserve there. So any questions on the financial highlights?
Director Carl.
Thank you. Next year, I look forward to your report not having any deficiencies with respect to ASB funds, and I'd love our staff to figure out how to train that a little bit better, and I think it's important that that the student advisors at the schools drill down on this a little bit better. You know, it's a lesson to be learned by students that they need to balance checkbooks, and they need to, when they get cash in at ASB, they need to get that deposited properly and timely. So we continue to have this one here. I'd love it. You know, we've got a billion other things to deal with, but I'd love that one to be cleaned up. And are we running any risk with respect to the unduplicated pupil counts? This is, again, a deficiency that we haven't fixed. What potential implication is there?
Well, the numbers are fairly small, but the controls that are in place, it is a repeat from prior year. And I'll go over all that with the findings right now. And yes, ASB was one of the items we did bring up as a finding. So just to summarize the results, last year and in the past, we did issue some modified opinions. But this year, however, it was an unmodified. We issued 4 opinions. All of them were unmodified. And we felt that the improvements and the progress the district was making didn't warrant the level to modify the opinion. So there is improvement over the past few years. But however, there are still findings. There are still repeat findings, such as capital assets, just the tracking of the capital assets. the unrecorded liability, the $2 million unrecorded liability in AP, that was missed. And then the OPEB valuation, that's the recommendation this year, now that GASB 75 is out, would be to get a GASB 75 valuation rather than the GASB 45, which was the old requirement. So directly to your question about the ASB, last year there were a lot of recommendations, and the district has implemented a lot of them, and we followed up on those controls and tested those controls, and we did see improvement. However, there were still some recommendations to be made, just as far as the bank reconciliations themselves, just being timely and just being accurate overall, but it was limited to just a few sites, so it wasn't widespread. So there was definitely improvement in that area. And the unduplicated count, again, very minimal in terms of the effect on the district, but it came down to the supporting documents that were missing. So as far as the actual numbers, it was because of the lack of the documentation, but again, it was limited to just a few. So, and then just a few more, just to go on. We had the ACES program. Again, that was a documentation issue on the attendance end. But,
Thank you.
yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, and I apologize for the error we had on page 27 in the header for those who saw that. So we had that corrected, and the revised version has been sent to the
Thank you.
district.
Move approval of the audit report.
Second.
Moved by Director Carl, second by Director Sheffield. Roll call vote, please.
Aye.
Director Sheffield? Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Okay, motion carries. F9. Thank you. Action item, California Department of Education request for allowance of attendance due to emergency conditions.
Yes, we are proposing a waiver, J13A, due to the Tubbs fire and multiple fires in the area. We're submitting a waiver to the state for the approval of ADA and days missed, materials days missed due to the fire. As you stated, we have to submit this form to the Department of Ed for the average daily attendance and closed days and credit for instructional times for days that would have been regularly offered during the fire and the natural disaster. So this is one that we have to submit now, and we will have to submit another one later, and then we will bring that one forward.
Thank you.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Director Carl, second by Director Christoph. Roll call vote, please.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
Aye.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Pugh? Director Anderson? Sorry. Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Okay, that motion carries, bringing us to our last action item, approval of superintendent contract extension. Director Christoph.
Yes, I'd like to speak to this if I might. I'm sorry it's late, but my position is known on this, and I want to make sure that my colleagues understand my reasoning on this. I will not be supporting this, and I have not supported this concept for some years. I'd like to explain this briefly because I don't take this subject lightly. Some believe that the only job of the school board member that the only job a school board member has is hiring and firing the superintendent. I believe it is the most important part of my job as a school board member. I am directly accountable to the public for the performance of the superintendent and the goals we have set for her. Our school board, as most, has made increasing student achievement the most important goal for our superintendent. This is no easy task given the lack of adequate funding and systemic changes currently taking place. Nevertheless, our school district must be held accountable. A 3-year contract is a reasonable amount of time to demonstrate whether there has been an increase in student achievement. There needs to be evidence for this. This may entail more than just metrics, but we need to prove where we are making progress. The vetting must be thorough and completely transparent. I'll call this point the critical juncture. The California School Boards Association in its superintendent contract template says that getting to the spot, quote, will encourage a more thorough review. It recommends, quote, no automatic renewal or extending of an old contract. Since my tenure on the board, I have attended several board workshops at the CSBA conventions dealing with the superintendent's contract. I remember my first discussing this at a CSBA workshop during my second year on the board. The topic of contract extension was the main focus, and I came to believe that this clause is at a cross purpose with my duty as a school board member. I've had numerous discussions about this. I recently verified with CSBA Legal that number 58 in the template that deals with contract extensions is still there and reflects their views. My decision to not support the extension is neither personal nor connected to the superintendent's annual review. I am accountable to the public, and arriving at the critical juncture is important to the public to see, and it is important to the public to see if I'm doing my job as I promised. I view, quote, annual extensions as a delay in arriving at our critical juncture, and therefore I will be voting no on this extension. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Christoff. Director Carl.
Thank you. I agree with Director Christoff that we shouldn't have automatic extensions, and I will never support automatic extensions. That's not what we have here. What we have here is a requirement that the board consider after they do an analysis and evaluation of the superintendent, and if the superintendent has done an adequate or better job, that they would then consider whether extending the contract an additional year would be appropriate. In this case, we did in fact do that, a very extensive analysis, and determined that it not only was an adequate job, it was quite a good job in a lot of areas. As with any employee, there are things that you want to see done differently the next year, but in general, a very, very good job. And we hear that from a lot of people within the district too, oftentimes with stakeholders that generally don't agree with superintendents. So I see no reason not to extend 1 year. Plus, something that's been very clear to me and very important to me on contracts that we have with any of our staff is that we have an ability to terminate without cause. So a 3-year contract is really not a 3-year contract. The fact of the matter is, if we decided that there was a cause, we could terminate immediately. If we decided that we wanted to terminate without cause, we can do that under this contract. There is a payment of 6 months worth of benefits associated with that, but that is not a clause that shows up in very many superintendent contracts throughout the state. We've maintained that, and we continue to seem to be able to attract good people to the job. This is not an automatic extension. I have really no issue with it whatsoever, and I very much appreciate the job the superintendent has done. And we, as a board, in being responsive to the taxpayers and the people in our community, need to make sure that our superintendent knows that she has our full support. So I will support this motion.
Bill is saving me lots of time tonight by reading my mind and expressing similar thoughts. This isn't an automatic extension in the contract. It gives the board the sole discretion to extend a contract for a year when there's been a favorable evaluation. We did an evaluation process with the superintendent that was robust, very time-consuming and detailed, and I'm very proud of the board for that, and the superintendent for working with us and coming up with some good goals going forward, and also one that expressed all of our appreciation for what we think is a job extremely well done, and for that reason we brought this forward. The one thing I also want to mention publicly, because she probably won't do it on her own, is that the superintendent has the right to take any raise that is given to certificated staff, and she has declined a pay increase in line with what our SRTA negotiated for its own members. So I think she should be given some commendation for that. Okay, so this is an action item.
I'd like to move the item.
Second.
Moved by Director Pugh, second by Director Carl. Roll call vote, please.
Director Pugh?
Aye.
Director Carl?
Aye.
Director Christoph?
No.
Director Fong?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye.
Director Sheffield?
Aye.
President Close?
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. We are adjourned.